cliff 3,000 kilometers high. It brought back memories of the old days for the mad demon, especially about the days when he dreamed of becoming a martial arts god. Not the easiest dream, but a dream he desired so much. And as soon as people found out about his ambitions, they immediately labeled him a freak. But despite this, he trained day and night to make his dream a reality. Until he thought about becoming a martial arts god, he considered his training to be redundant. But now he realized that it wasn't enough. Suddenly someone called out to him, calling him a mad demon. It was the left hand of the demonic cult. He told the mad demon that it was time to stop wasting their time and give them back the heavenly pearls he had stolen from the cult. The mad demon asked the left-handed man if he didn't understand what he was telling him now. He just looked and asked what would change the story the demon was telling, because his end has come, and he's been running from them all this time, but now there's nowhere else to run. Then the demon took the pearl in his hand, held it out over the precipice, and asked what could he throw it down. Then the left hand immediately apologized and asked him to continue his story. The demon said he is an expert in mind games, tricks, strategies, traps, and lies, so it's simply impossible for him to take the bait. He added that he was also a very good drinker and had a great command of his body. Left hand replied that demon could fool himself as much as he wanted, especially regarding the decoys, since the only reason he never got into them was that all the beautiful women were incapable of acting like they liked him. Also, the left hand said that's why they had to lure him in with a simple girl they could barely find. And literally everyone knows about it. Then the demon asked the left hand once more if he wanted the demon to throw away the pearls. The one apologized again and asked him to continue. The demon continued that in order to become a martial arts god, he strived to learn every possible technique. Left hand asked him if he had finished his story. The demon replied that he had not yet. The demon said that after he had traveled all this thorny path, everything began to seem meaningless. He spent his time traveling the world in the hope of bringing justice to the world. Left hand asked the demon that it turns out that he is that wanted enemy of the Murim Alliance. Left hand also said that the demon was even higher than him on the wanted list, even though he was a member of a demonic cult, and asked the demon that isn't this the Orthodox sect first, and called him a mad demon. The demon asked again, wondering if he should throw away the pearl after all. Left hand took a deep breath and apologized if he had angered the demon. The demon said it was quite iconic to watch him being the left hand of the pointing light controlling his anger. The demon also said that he had killed hundreds of elite demonic cult soldiers while they were chasing him, but the left hand still held his own. At this time, the left hand told the demon that just because he had a clan, it didn't mean he could use it as he pleased. The demon responded by saying it was bloodlust, and of course the left hand wants to kill him, and he respects his decision, so he will end it with a fight. The demon decided that he would throw the pearl off the cliff so that it wouldn't interfere with their battle. Left hand apologized again for showing unnecessary emotion and offered to try to negotiate. The demon got angry and started screaming, "What kind of treaty could we talk about? They had been chasing him for days, not even giving him a chance for a break, using the celestial net." The demon also added that he didn't have time to eat or sleep. Left hand replied that that was their goal. The left hand asked the demon what he was going to do. The demon put the pearl in his mouth and began to eat it. Anger gripped his left hand. He didn't know what to do. The demon ate the pearl and added that it had an unexpected flavor. The demon replied that looking at his reaction, it was the right decision. His left hand went out of his mind and ordered the demon and didn't give him a chance to survive. The warriors attacked the demon, but he dealt with them vividly, killing one by one. Demon asked left hand how much longer he planned to let his subordinates die, since he spent whole days weakening it, and doesn't left hand think it's time to come up with, well, something new? Left hand then replied that he would personally finish him off, and ordered all the warriors to fall back. The demon replied that left hand was so cocky and asked why he didn't engage him earlier when he was full of strength. The left hand immediately attacked the demon. The demon ordered him to show him everything he could do. Gathering all his strength in his torso, the demon opened his wounds from earlier, and decided that he would take him with him to the other world. They fought in a scramble, and left hand had no idea that the mad demon was so strong that even in this state he was unable to handle him. The demon took a step back and began to fall into the abyss, screaming that he hoped their leader would execute them all. The left hand immediately ordered everyone to descend the cliff and find his body immediately. However, the demon was forced to fight before he left for the other world. He killed many elite soldiers of the demon cult. And at the same time he stole and ate the cult's sacred item. So his life was quite exciting. And if the Murima Council found out about it, would they pay the martial artists a year's reward for him? However, that wasn't as important to him now. Much more important was why he never got a hot girl. Suddenly the demon found himself in a very bright place. He couldn't figure out where he was. Suddenly some old man appeared and told the demon that he must be completely insane, since he did not hesitate to eat something containing a soul. The demon noticed that the old man was literally floating in the air, which meant he was very strong. The old man replied that it wasn't that important right now, since the heavenly pearl he had eaten contained countless souls of the greatest martial artists. And now the souls that can't ascend will join with the demon's soul. And if the demon falls asleep, the souls can wake him up immediately. Or if he eats, the souls will share the essence of the food with him. They will also cling to what the demon won't touch. The old man said that this meant that the demon's chi would rampage all the time. However, the demon liked it. The old man called him a fool and asked him why he had swallowed the heavenly pearls. The demon felt as if the old man could kill him with just his breath, since his power is beyond the demon's senses. And if he doesn't give him the answer the old man wants to hear, the old man asked him to answer without any tricks or lies. The demon replied that it wasn't that he wanted to eat her. He just wanted to make sure the demon cult leader wouldn't eat him, since the demon hates their leader because he doesn't see other people as such. And if someone like him gets that kind of power, it's hard to even think about it. The old man asked if he didn't like him, just for his attitude toward other people. The old man thought about it and told the demon that this method of his to create good things, it was an excellent reason. The old man said that the life he would reward the demon with would be his last, and he wouldn't be able to help him until his punishment came to fruition. The demon asked the old man what he wanted to say. The old man replied that it was the best thing he could give him, and he added that the demon deserved some gift after all. After that, the old man used a very strange technique. In an instant, the demon found himself in the inn he lived in as a child. And his name is Izaha. Izaha couldn't understand what had happened. After all, he was in his early 20s when he lived here. It suddenly hit him because now he could start studying martial arts a few years earlier than the previous time. And what's more, he could get stronger now in less time. Izaha set his sights on getting much stronger this time around. Suddenly he touched his face and realized his lip was split. Izaha did not understand why he had been beaten or when it had happened. The guy came out of his room and found the whole hotel literally upside down. And then Izaha remembered the circumstances under which it happened. He worked as a waiter in this hotel. 2 visitors came in to eat. One of them told the guy that he had heard that he was saving up for something, and he asked him what it was. Izaha thought at the time that he couldn't say that he was just completely despairing because of his parents' death, and so he didn't know what to say to him. Suddenly, the guy came up with the idea of just joking around for the sake of keeping the dialogue going. And then Izaha said that he dreamed of hearing Cheyenne sing live in the Plum Blossom brothel. The kid didn't expect it at all, but soon rumors of his desire spread all over the city. Everyone was saying that the kid who works at Zaha's hotel was saving up money to sleep with Cheyenne. Some people thought he was crazy, and it was no surprise to them now that he was always looking for a way to make money. Izaha merely made a joke about Cheyenne that was popular at the time, in Ilian Prefecture, and immediately rumors spread. Looking at the current state of the inn, Izaha was definitely sure he was in the time period when it happened. Everything was in shambles. Just thinking about it made Izaha furious. They'd beaten the guy up and trashed the hotel just because he'd made a joke. Izaha decided that he would start by examining his body in detail and then decide what to do next. Guy has taken to relearning the arts of the steel lands that he used in the days when he was a mad demon. While applying the technique, Izaha noticed that there was chi present in his body. This seemed very strange to him, as he had never had a drop of chi at this time. However, he considered himself quite lucky with this. Aizaha decided to hurry up and learn the art of the steel lands as soon as possible. Aizaha applied the technique and couldn't believe that even though his mind was well versed in the art, it was a real surprise to him that he was able to comprehend the first stage of the art's steel lands how fast. And then Aizaha remembered the old man's words that this was the best thing he could give him. A gift he deserved. The energy Aizaha felt in his body. The guy thought it all had something to do with the heavenly pearl he had absorbed. However, the guy found that more than half of the energy in his body was still stagnant. And that's a real shame. But Aizaha quickly calmed himself down, as he has nowhere to rush. And he already had a formidable base. He could become much stronger in much less time than he expected. It had been quite some time since Aizaha had felt anything on his heart. So he decided to walk around the neighborhood for a while. The boy was walking through the streets and slowly began to remember things a little. Suddenly he came across two men who clearly recognized him. One of the men said he was the kid from Zaha's hotel. Another marveled that he was still alive. Other people were discussing the fact that they heard this guy got beat up a couple days ago. But it seems he's pretty strong since he's walking around freely on the street. Aizaha had heard all of this, of course, and that's exactly how he used to be. Everyone had neglected him, just because he was an errand boy at the inn. The more Aizaha thought about it, the more it made him angry. Suddenly, Aizaha reached the place where the brothel of Plum Blossoms was located. The guy's mind immediately flashed back to memories of being beaten and told how dare he hope he could sleep with the best girl in the Plum Blossom brothel. And how dare such filth even think of such a thing. They promised the guy they'd make sure he never said a word about it again. Aizaha was screaming that he never said such a thing, and that it was all just a joke. During the beating, the same Cheyenne was also present there. The guy didn't understand why she was looking at him like that, since he didn't say anything like that. Even a mad demon had times like this, and he'd come back at the perfect time to set things right. Suddenly someone called out to the guy, and ordered him, as the errand boy, to come up to him and tell him what he was looking at. It was a brothel guard, and he asked the guy what was his plan to set fire to the Plum Blossom brothel. Then the guard started laughing loudly and said that in fact such a mutt couldn't even light a match, and was incapable of anything but sobbing. The guard came closer to Aizaha and said it was amazing he wasn't dead yet, since he'd been beaten up recently, and reminded the guy that he'd better sit in a hotel and not hang around after a beating like that. The guy just kept quiet. But the guard started asking why he was silent. And then Aizaha asked the guard what his name was. The guard was surprised at such audacity and was about to strike. But Aizaha dodged and the guard's fist flew past. And Aizaha retaliated with a punch that sent the guard flying back a few meters. The boy said he shouldn't have been so angry, because he had just asked his name. Suddenly another guard spotted Aizahu. He immediately thought it was the kid they had the other day again. He rudely asked the guy why he had come here. Aizaha replied that he shouldn't be so rude to a guest. In response, the guard called him an errand boy and was about to strike. But he missed too. And the guy pinned him to the ground in one motion. Aizaha added that they have terrible guest service and he doesn't understand their mindset regarding service. Aizaha entered the brothel and shouted loudly to the entire establishment that what were all these fools busy doing so they would serve the customer immediately. The people present immediately noticed that it was that kid from Zaha's hotel. And he seemed to have lost his temper after being beaten up a couple of days ago. The guards immediately ran up to the guy and told him he was out of his mind, reminding him where he was. Aizaha replied that he was obviously in a place where he could afford to drink, and asked the guards that did they really think he would come there without realizing it. The guards did not expect such a response and said that he had definitely lost his mind. However, suddenly someone told them to let him in. Aizaha looked at the man and remembered him. It was Cha, the manager of the Plum Blossoms. Cha said they couldn't throw out a visitor who came to them for a drink. A guest is a guest. Aizaha smiled and asked the guards if they understood everything. Cha ordered to get this guy some good drinks, since when he would have the opportunity to visit such a place again. Cha also ordered Aiza to be well served. The guards escorted the guy to a private room and asked him what he would be drinking. Aizaha replied that he had never been to a place like this and told them to just bring him the most expensive thing they had. The guard asked him to watch his language. Aizaha sat down on the couch and asked the guard if he didn't enjoy serving the errand boy. He roughly told him to bring him a drink. The guard at that time thought that if it wasn't for Cha's order, he would have finished him off. The guy was set a table full of food and brought a drink. He asked the girl what kind of drink was in front of him. The girl said that it was Duquan's top-grade Duquan liquor. Then Aizaha asked if Cheyenne was here now. The girl said that the head would be furious, since she heard that he was beaten up for something related to Cheyenne. Aizaha smiled and said that it seemed like all the locals knew that he had been beaten up. He asked the girl not to worry about it and just bring her to him. The girl said that she would fulfill the request. At this time the guy decided to have a drink. However, he immediately noticed the attitude towards himself, because the liquor in the shot glass wasn't even third-rate, judging by the smell and color. A guard burst into the room and called Aiza a dumbass, asking him who he thought he was. Aizaha asked if there was something wrong with the errand boy stopping by for a drink, and asked why the guard was allowing himself to humiliate a guest. The guy also added that he seemed to remember that the guard's name was Dongwak. Aizaha said he could pour him a glass and invited him to sit down. Dongwak laughed and said that Aizaha had obviously eaten something wrong today, and he seemed to have forgotten what had happened to him a couple days ago. Aizaha poured into a glass at this time and held it out to Dongwak. The guard took the shot glass and said he'd better get lost as soon as he was done with his drink. Aizaha purposely addressed the guard impolitely. The latter couldn't stand it and pounded on the table. Aizaha asked him why he was acting like that. The guy also added that he planned to have a good drink and sit here with Cheyenne before leaving, and asked him to explain why everyone around him was barking like dogs. Unexpectedly, Cheyenne walked in. She ordered Dongwak to stand outside. Aizaha repeated the girl's words and asked Dongwak to stand at the entrance. The girl sat down across from the guy and asked him, "What was that smile about?" Then Aizaha asked her in reply that if an errand boy had to keep himself in check in a place like this. Cheyenne said that it's not fun at all, since Cha and the head are bound to get involved. Aizaha took a drink and asked the girl to stop increasing her price. The girl looked at the drink and said it was a rather expensive Dun liquor. She advised the guy to pay the check and leave them before he did more damage. At this time, Aizaha was thinking about the fact that this was the first time he was seeing Cheyenne so closely. The girl told the guy that even if he brought all the gold and silver of the province, there was no way she would agree to sleep with him. Cheyenne added that although she works here, it doesn't mean she sleeps with everyone she meets, and she is not a girl of easy virtue. Aizaha then said that he would also tell it like it is. The guy revealed that he never said he was saving up to sleep with her, and all he said was just that he wanted to hear her sing, because like it was said, she sells her art. Aizaha also added that it was just a joke he had inadvertently said at the hotel. Cheyenne replied that she had never heard of it. Aizaha said that he didn't want to do that, and there was definitely no money for someone like that. The reason he wanted to meet with Cheyong was to tell the truth. After that, he told the girl to leave. Cheyenne didn't realize what was going on. The guy once again asked her to leave. Suddenly 3 guards burst into the room and said that he had come here for his death, and that they were about to take him outside. The guy asked to at least let him finish his drink before they started. The guards did not expect such rudeness. Aizaha added that since they are already sure that they can kill him at any time, so we can let the guy on the run enjoy this liquor. The guards laughed loudly and asked Cheyenne to stay outside. After that, they sat down at the guy's table and told him that this was his last drink. One of the guards said that it was worth admitting that this kid had balls, since he came here with his head held up proudly and even called out to Cheyenne. Another guard added that if he had known earlier that this kid had balls of steel, he would have been tougher on him. The third guard said that now they knew they could punch him in the face a lot harder this time. Aizaha asked the guards if they wanted a drink, but the guards ordered him to get up and go outside. The guy poured himself another glass and said it was a terrible quality of liquor. The guard didn't understand why Aizaha was so calm. He assumed the guy had really lost his mind after they beat him up last time. Aizaha had finished all his drinks at that time. He then asked the guards, addressing them as old friends, that he was so funny. The guards smirked and said he was a real clown, and he'd gotten his ass kicked a couple days ago because he'd brought it on himself. Aizaha started laughing louder and louder, and at one point the guy stood up, knocked over the table and assumed an attack pose. Aizaha used the technique. The guards tried to cover themselves with the table, however, it didn't help them. The guy approached them and asked if he was still a clown to them. Aizaha beat up the guards, and at that time the girl who brought him a drink was standing outside the door and could not understand what was going on there. The guy continued to taunt the guards, at which time a girl entered the room. Aizaha addressed her, calling her an old hag, and told him to bring him some more of that shitty third-rate liquor. The girl was surprised to be addressed in such a way and said that it was Dukuin liquor of the highest grade. Aizaha replies that she is bullshitting him. He restrains himself from hitting a woman who knows nothing about martial arts. He also added that she should think before opening her mouth. After that, the guy went back to the guards. Aizaha bent down and asked them why they weren't laughing, since he was such a funny buffoon. Just then Cha came in with a bunch of guards. Aizaha said he was waiting for them. Cha asked the guy if he was out of his mind. He added that at this rate, he wouldn't get out of there alive. Aizaha asked that are they really going to kill him? Cha replied that yes they would. And the guy started laughing again. Cha couldn't believe that Aizaha was laughing so brazenly in his face. Immediately, he used the technique against the guy. However, this time too Aizaha dodged the blow. And after that, he attacked Cha and his guards with plates that wounded each of them. Aizaha asked if anyone else wished to fight him. He heard only silence in response. And then Cha told the guy that he really wanted to die today. After that, Cha grabbed his sword. Aizaha asked him to think before he acted, and warned him that if he completely bare his sword, he would die. Cha noticed this guy wasn't kidding, and he didn't understand at all what had happened to him these past couple of days. Aizaha asked Cha if he thought the three of them were lying around because they'd just been unlucky, and added that seriously does Cha think his eye is in that condition right now because Aizaha is just lucky. The guy warned Cha again that if he didn't want to die, he should think hard about his actions, or bare his sword and die here. Cha realized that these were not simple threats, since during the attack, he didn't even have time to notice this guy's movement. Cha ordered everyone to come down immediately and wait for him downstairs. Afterward, he asked Aizaha what he was up to, since it's not like the guy is just going to leave when he's done with his drink. Cha asks if Aizaha wants to get an apology from the host for what happened a couple days ago. Aizaha replied that it sounded good. He asked Cha if the owner would show up if he wanted an apology. Cha replied that in that case he would call the master. Aizaha inquired from him about his eye. Cha replied that luckily it didn't look like he couldn't see them. Aizaha replied that he thought he was going to die when they beat him that time. Then Cha ordered his subordinates to prepare a table in the next room, and told the guy that if he wasn't going to kill those guards, he should let them heal them. Cha looked at Aiza strangely. He didn't understand what was wrong with his facial expression after doing something like that. Aizaha looked at him and replied that he would allow those guards to be treated. After that, the boy and Cha sat down at the table in the next room. Cha received a call in which he was outraged about the mess that had come out of nowhere. There was a drink on the table, and Cha said he would fill the guy's glass. He added that it was Duchuan liquor of the highest quality, so it tasted great. Aizaha replied that this liquor had been brought to him earlier, however, it turned out to be some bullshit and not a top-quality liquor. Cha explained that they must have purchased third-rate bottles by accident, and asked the guy to understand that this was a business and they should get some profit. Aizaha replied that enough chit-chat and told Cha to take a drink. Cha said he understood that the guy wanted to check if the liquor was poisoned, so Cha drank first. Cha asked the guy if he was always so good at fighting since he had never heard of his style. Aizaha explained that he had just always held himself back because his father had instructed him to never get into a fight. Cha immediately realized it was a lie. He told the guy that one way or another, he apologizes for everything that happened earlier. And since his subordinates bullied him, Aizaha can be understood. The guy very rudely thanked him for being so understanding, and said he was getting a little annoyed at how arrogantly Cha was apologizing to him. Aizaha asked him that maybe he should break Cha a bone or two to change his attitude. Suddenly Cha fell to the floor and began to sincerely beg for forgiveness, talking about being on his knees in front of someone for the first time in his life. Cheyenne entered the room. She asked Cha what he was doing. The girl noticed that he was very scared. It was a real surprise to her that Cha had fallen to his knees and bowed his head to the errand boy, and then there was that wound on his face. Cheyenne suggested that Cha had lost to that kid. Aizaha told the girl that he didn't expect to see her again. Cha ordered her to pull herself together and do what she came here to do. The girl walked over and handed the unknown object to Cha. Cha started yelling at her and told her it wasn't for him. After that, he told her to put it on the table. There was a drink in the girl's hands. Cheyenne started pouring shots, And then Aizaha turned to her and asked if she knew that even an errand boy was capable of true love. He then added that this love has nothing to do with her, so she should bail. The girl was angry that Aizaha had ruined her mood so badly. Cha at this time asked her what she was waiting for and to get out quickly. Cha noticed that the girl sobbed just hearing that. Aizaha asked him to stop this disrespectful tone, since the sight of the slit in his eye makes him uncomfortable. Cha immediately apologized and said he understood. Aizaha gave him another angry look and said he was pretty good at using his sharp tongue. Aizaha asked Cha when the master would be coming. He replied that he was currently serving the experts from the Black Cat Association. Therefore, it will be difficult for him to appear right now. Aizaha asked if this is the kind of union that is a bunch of crooks. Cha confirmed this and said that the alliance to establish itself here on the approval of the top. Therefore, the head wants to show them a good side, and added that because of what happened today, things are not so easy. Aizaha then asked that if Cha wants to say that if he tampers with their masters, then the Black Cat would have to make its way to the local market on its own. Cha said that's exactly what it was. Aizaha then asked what he expected him to do. Does he really want the guy to have a nice drink with his host and just leave them peacefully? Cha replied that he realizes it won't be solved that way, and asked the guy what he wanted. Then Aizaha asked him what he thought. If the master and his brothers were to serve him, would the union of the Black Cat stick its nose there? Cha asked the boy if he seriously thought they would do such a thing. Then Aizaha suggested that he himself could start a sect and they could join him as his subordinates. Cha replied that he didn't understand. Then Aizaha explained that he was giving him a chance to decide for himself, and if he thinks the Black Cat Alliance will win, Cha can fight alongside his master on their side. If he thinks otherwise, he should join Aiza. Cha didn't understand what made the guy change his mind about him so drastically. And what kind of an errand boy was he, talking about creating a cult so easily? Aizaha got up from the table, and Cha asked if he was leaving so quickly. He suggested that he wait a little longer. Aizaha asked him that does he really think the guy is running away. Cha replied that that's exactly what he thought. Aizaha gave him a menacing look and said that he was asking for it. Cha asked the guy to be careful on the way back and he would let himself pay on his tab. Aizaha replied that he could do what he wanted. The guy came out and there was a crowd of guards at the door. He told these insects to get out of his way. Going downstairs, Aizaha heard the shouts of the guard he had beaten. The one was yelling that he was going to grab this guy and destroy him. Aizaha then walked over to her and asked how he was feeling. The guard immediately jumped on the guy. However, with just one blow, Aizaha threw the guard back a few meters. After that, the guy asked him to explain to this guard how things worked here. Otherwise, he would have to nail him again. Aizaha left the brothel and said in farewell that the errand boy had had a lot of fun today. On the way back, Aizaha came to the location of the Black Cat Alliance. He realized that he should get a weapon if he wanted to join the alliance. The boy went to the forge and there he was immediately noticed by the vice head of the forge, the dragon head Guac. Guac asked the errand boy about showing up to repay his debts. Aizaha replied that he wanted to buy something. Guac asked if he needed a sickle or a kitchen knife. Aizaha revealed that he's thinking of fighting the Cho family, so he's keeping an eye out for weapons. Then Guac replied that he had heard that he had been beaten up a couple of days ago. So you can't let a hot head get the better of your mind and push yourself to death. Aizaha ordered him to shut up and show him the assortment, adding that he wanted something like a single arm or whip, or a razor-sharp dagger. Guac asked if he was going to use them all. Guy replied that it was just his guess at a weapon and he should respect his customers' choices. Then Guac told his subordinates to bring the black dragon sword, the white dragon whip, and the cloud dragon dagger. Guac added that he really liked the chicken noodles that Aiza's grandparents made, and he doesn't understand why the boy makes such a bad cook. Aizaha replied that this was not the time to talk about noodles. Guac then asked what topics he was suggesting. The guy offered to talk about the unification of the Murim by a regular errand boy. At that time the subordinates came and said that they had brought everything. Guac told the guy he could use as much time as he needed to evaluate the weapon. Aizaha replied that he would buy everything as he was in a hurry. Then Guac said that he owed 90 coins. Aizaha was surprised that it came out to 90 coins. Guak added that he was giving him a huge discount since the guy was local. Then Aizaha offered him 50 coins if Guak would let him borrow the weapon for a while and return it once the guy was done with everything. Guak got very angry and replied that it was literally stealing. Suddenly someone began to complain that the workshop was too noisy. The headmaster of the Dragon Head walked in. Guak explained that this guy was planning to go to war against the 3 brothers of the Cho family, and he wants to rent a gun from them for 50 coins. Asked Aiza that he was the son of the Zaha family who owned the inn. The guy replied that it was a long time ago. Said that a long time ago he used to love the chicken noodles that the guy's grandparents used to make. And what he's making now is just awful. Guak added that he had already told the boy that. The master then asked Aiza if he was serious about going to war against the Cho family. If it's because the Cho brothers are bothering him, the master will ask them to stop. And if they refuse, can protect Aiza. He also said that he owed his grandparents a debt of gratitude. But there was no reason to pay attention to it, as it was no longer important. Aizaha wondered if Combe had always been like this. He didn't recall him saying such things to him in his past life. Or maybe the future had changed because of Aizaha. The boy replied that he appreciated the master's concern, but asked that he be allowed to figure things out for himself. Asked what he had in mind. Aizaha suggested gathering all the local blacksmiths and founding a clan of steel dragons. Asked what the guy was even talking about. The guy explained that if the Cho brothers formed an alliance in the prefecture, they would force a huge amount of money out of them. And that's why Aizaha plans to establish a federation of their prefecture's clans and make sure that the Black Cat Alliance won't have power here. Asked about the clan federation. Aizaha explained that the brothels were going to donate to a clan. They in turn could unite the blacksmiths into a steel dragon clan, and the resulting union of architects plan to submit to the sect of brothers. In response, Aizaha decided to unite all the working layers into a clan to give even greater unification. Aizaha added that they will not have to pay him any tribute and no clan will have to pay it to anyone else, and their goal would only be to make sure that no one steals from them. Replied that it sounded sketchy, but it made sense, and asked the guy what he planned to call himself. Aizaha said that if you combine a place for the lower stratum and the dirty end, you get the Hao clan. Was amused by this and was quite interested to see a mere errand boy trying to start a clan. He asked the guy if he was sure he could handle the Cho brothers alone. Aizaha replied that he could see for himself. Then ordered Guak to give the weapon to this guy. The master also said that they would continue this conversation if Aizaha survived. After that, the guy went home, practiced a few techniques, and headed over to Cho's family. He was immediately noticed by the second brother Igel. He asked the boy what he was doing here. He asked him what he was doing here, since they were going to call him after they had finished digging a hole for him. Igel ordered Aiza to sit down. The boy did so, glaring angrily at him. Igel revealed that today was a good day for the Cho brothers, since they got approval from the Black Cat Alliance to establish themselves there in Ilyang Prefecture. A fool who can't cook chicken noodles properly has set up an incomprehensible mess in their brothel. Igel asked Aiza what he suggested he do about it. He also asked for 3 reasons why Aizaha should stay alive before they finished digging that hole. Aizaha started laughing again. Igel asked him how dare he laugh. Then the boy asked him why he should weep. Igel was seized with hatred and pounced on the guy. However, Aizaha stabbed his arm with a dagger. Holding the dagger in his hand, Aizaha asked him to give 1 reason why he should let Igel live. Igel wondered what kind of errand boy made a mess of the brothel, so it was surprising to him that Aizaha could do such a thing. Suddenly the subordinates told Igel that they had almost finished digging the hole. Then Igel ordered them to dig a little deeper. Igel told the guy that he noticed that he had undergone some epiphany, and after saying that, he was going to squeeze the guy's eyes out with 2 fingers. As soon as he raised his hand, Aizaha used the technique, disarming him and pressing the dagger even harder into his already wounded hand. Aizaha began to ask what they needed the pit for. Then Igel explained in a trembling voice that it was only to frighten him. Aizaha asked again why he needed to keep Igel alive, but Igel couldn't think of any reason. Then Aizaha asked him if he thought there was a real reason why someone like him should stay alive, since Igel was not only involved in selling people, but also ruthlessly killed them when things didn't go according to plan. And among those people were some of Aiza's acquaintances. Igel began to shout that if he killed him, His brothers and the Black Cat Alliance would never forgive Aiza for that. Aizaha reminded him that he was asking for a reason to let him live, not to threaten him here. And after that, using just one technique, Aizaha destroyed Eagle. While the subordinates had absolutely nothing to do, they were digging a hole. Aizaha shouted at them to stop digging. The subordinates turned around and were horrified at what they saw. Aizaha said that there was nothing to be surprised about, since Eagle was actually walking around with a knife himself and just took it and died for no reason. Then one of the subordinates asked Aiza who he was. He replied that he was the errand boy from Za's hotel. The subordinate replied that that was not what he meant. Aizaha ordered him to stop crossing him and take off his masks so he could look at them, in case he knows any of them. The subordinates took off their masks and Aizaha said it was the first time he met them in the prefecture, and asked if they were human from the Black Cat. One of the subordinates replied that they were not, and that they had only recently arrived in Ilyang Prefecture, and had been working for the Plum Blossom Brothel all along. Then Aizaha offered them a choice. Either all three would die here and now, or they would bury this corpse and return to their hometowns. The subordinate replied that if he let them live, they would just go back to their home country and forget about it. However, another subordinate began shouting that he could not return to his home country due to personal circumstances, and he promised never to go near the brothel again. Suddenly, the second subordinate also supported his colleague and said he couldn't go back. Then Aizaha ordered them to take care of the body and get out. And then the subordinate asked if he needed a kitchen worker, since he would have nowhere to make a living except at the Plum Blossom Hotel. Aizaha asked a subordinate if he could cook well, and whether he could cook chicken noodles. The subordinate replied that he could do all these things. He promised that he could make divine chicken noodles. Aizaha said that he could do as he pleased, but that other things should be taken care of now. The subordinates began to bury the body. Aizaha stepped back and met Cha unexpectedly. He asked him what he was doing here. Cha smiled and replied that he didn't expect Aizaha to be able to defeat Eagle. Then Aizaha asked him if he really thought he would die from someone like Eagle. The guy also added that he heard that Cha's eyes are already fine. Cha replied that it was just a way to hide his face from the public. Cha recounted that he said he hurt his eye and after that, running away, he immediately went looking for a doctor. He would be buried next to Eagle. Cha hinted to Aiza that he was very useful and smart. Aizaha said it was a good job. Cha thanked him and said he had no other choice to survive. Cha asked the guy how he planned to deal with the remaining Tucho brothers. Without a second's hesitation, Aizaha replied that he would kill them, and if he allowed them to exist, the suffering of the Ilyang prefecture would continue to increase. Cha replied that he understands that the main pain in the ass right now is Ilsum, so Isaac should be extra careful when he goes after him. Aizaha asked Cha to buy a snack since they had liquor but nothing to munch on to go with it. Cha didn't understand why all of a sudden, since they had just been talking about Ilsum, and he also asked if he didn't have any snacks at the inn. Aizaha looked at him and replied menacingly that no. Cha replied that it was not surprising since it was a regular hotel, so he would go and buy one. Aizaha started laughing and asked where the money would come from. Cha replied that the place was known for its delicious chicken noodles, and how did it even get so downhill? Aizaha replied that he could think whatever he wanted, and just have him go get more snacks of all sorts and maybe even take his favorites. Aizaha also added that if there was anything left tonight, they could eat tomorrow. Cha set off and the guy advised him to move faster since he wasn't out for a walk. Cha just couldn't get it into his head that he was running errands for an errand boy. Aizaha was yelling at him to quicken his turtle pace as the guy was getting hungry. Cha ended up bringing food. Aizaha said he could eat without being embarrassed since it was all bought with his money. Cha replied that he was enjoying himself as much as possible. Aizaha replied that the money was earned from exploiting young girls anyway, and in divorcing stupid people who can't tell the difference between expensive liquor and urine. So he ordered Cha to savor every crumb. Aizaha asked Cha what was wrong and if the food was not to his liking. In response, Cha simply drank a glass of liquor. Aizaha asked again that he was angry. Cha replied that he was angry about the fact that the food he had bought was terrible, and he added that Ilsum would follow Eagle to the other world anyway, and the Black Cat Alliance would not let it go unnoticed. Aizaha replied that if he was so worried about it, he shouldn't be blowing tears but training to get stronger. Cha remained silent, but at that moment he thought Aizaha was saying the same thing, as if Cha had something to do with it. He finally asked him what they were going to do. Aizaha replied that he was acting alone. Then Cha lost his temper and started shouting that he did not believe that Aizaha was a noodle maker or that he was just pretending. Aizaha asked him, wondering if he felt like dying. Or maybe death would give him enlightenment. Then Cha calmed down and suggested that we just slaughter all the black cat freaks. Aizaha replied that he would deal with Ilsum, but he had no information about Cho Sampung's whereabouts. Cha replied that Aizaha had spoken about Ilsum's murder, as if it was just a walk to the bathroom after drinking. Aizaha replied that if he was going to get even with him, he would. The real pain in the ass was Sampung. Cha replied that it was only a matter of time since he would be coming home sooner or later anyway. Aizaha then asked if Cha would be able to handle it if Sampung returned to the brothel. Cha replied that his strength would be enough to deal with someone like him, but immediately he added that it would be a bit problematic since his eye was damaged. Aizaha ordered him to make up his mind and tell him whether he could manage it or not. Cha replied that he would see if he could use the surprise factor as an advantage, since he is a master of subterfuge. Aizaha told him to stop and told him that if they sorted out all the brothers, was Cha sure he could run 3 brothels. Cha started to praise himself again, but Aizaha quickly shut him up, saying that he had already realized what an idiot he was. Also, Aizaha added that as long as there are so many people living in these brothels, it will be impossible to deal with all of them. And it's important to them that all the people who work there get what they deserve. And no one like Cha selling piss for the price of premium liquor. Aizaha said they would take care of the sick if necessary, nor would they prevent anyone from going home if they wanted to. Cha replied that it will be very difficult. Aizaha said that they are obliged to do it despite the difficulties. Cha asked why he wanted to do that. Aizaha replied that it was better than Cha dying at his hands. Aizaha had ordered him to take care of it, and if things didn't go according to plan, he would personally make sure Cha would meet Cho's brothers in the other world. Cha flared up and said to hell with it. After all, if he does anything wrong, Aizaha will immediately threaten him with death. And maybe he should just quit and go to the mountains. Aizaha reminded him that if they pulled it off, Cha would be in charge of 3 brothels. But if he didn't want that, then Aizaha would find someone else. Cha immediately replied that it was too early for him to quit. They had a drink. Aizaha stood up and began to take off his clothes. Cha was surprised and asked what was going on. Aizaha replied that he wanted to change into his clothes. Cha was even more confused about what was going on. Then Aizaha hurried him up and ordered him to take off his clothes. Cha changed his clothes and said that Aizaha was smarter than he thought, since he didn't expect the guy to realize that he wouldn't be allowed into the plum blossoms in rags that attract so much attention. And anyway, Cha doesn't think they'd let Isa into a brothel even dressed like that. His thoughts were actually about Aizaha slowing down at the entrance just by seeing his face. Aizaha finally changed his clothes and asked how he looked. Cha replied that of course he looked great. In response, Cha asked what he looked like. Aizaha replied that he looked almost like an errand boy. Cha told Aiza that before he was always wearing old rags and looked like a homeless person, and if he were Cha would dress better. Aizaha slapped him and ordered him to shut up. Aizaha said he had been too nice to him, and he hoped Cha had gotten the hint. Aizaha went about his business and said he would be back soon. In parting, Cha asked him to be careful with his clothes. Aizaha went to fetch Ilsum. The guards met him at the threshold and greeted him. The boy immediately asked if Ilsum was here. The subordinate then inquired where Aizaha was from and why he was looking for the master. The guy replied that he was from the Black Cat Alliance and asked to be escorted to Ilsum. Then the subordinate asked his name. The boy suddenly slapped the guard and asked how dare he waste his time. He ordered him to take him to Ilsum and not to pull the cat by the tail. The subordinate led Aiza inside and asked him to wait as he needed to notify his master. Aizaha sat down and thought that he must have planned to accept the Black Cat's alliance here, so that the brothers could form their own alliance in the Miram world. Ilsum appeared and said it was the first time he had seen this guy. At this time Ilsum was thinking that how dare this brat come to him at this late hour and sit in his chair without even thinking to greet him. Ilsum then asked Aiza how high his status was in the hierarchy of the Union. In response, the boy asked who had told him that he was a member of the Black Cat Alliance. Ilsum replied that he was informed by his subordinates. Then Aizaha asked if he really did not know him, and then Ilsum realized that he was the errand boy from Zaha's hotel. It made him angry and he asked how Aizaha had dared to show up there in the first place. However, it was strange to him that this guy was still alive. He remembered that his brother had said he would deal with this errand boy. Then Aizaha asked him that didn't he realize that he was here because his brother was dead. After hearing this, Ilsum could not believe that his brother had fallen at the hands of an errand boy. Aizaha told him that his brother paid Aizaha a visit and ordered his men to dig a hole for him. So the boy decided to kill him. This made Ilsum very angry and he lashed out at the guy while threatening him to stop talking nonsense immediately. Ilsum was going to destroy the errand boy, but there was no way he expected this guy to be able to block his attack with just one palm. Ilsum couldn't understand how he lost in this fight. Aizaha said at this time that he had heard that Ilsum was stronger than he was. This misled Ilsum even more, for Aizaha was just a boy from the local inn who was bullied by everyone and posed no threat. Aizaha looked him in the eyes at this time and asked him why he was hesitating and not attacking. Then the boy decided to take matters into his own hands and attack first. Without much effort, Aizaha killed Ilsum. He was lying on the ground, exhausted and still unable to believe what was happening. The only thing Ilsum asked Aiza was how he used techniques like this. After all, an errand boy doesn't deserve to have that kind of power. Aizaha grabbed him by the throat and lifted him up, asking him that is it really normal for freaks like him to be trained in techniques? And it's bad enough when an errand boy like him does the same. Aizaha called him a real scumbag. He used other people's livelihoods to enrich himself, and he has ruled this village for years. Izua's hatred overflowed, and he decided to destroy Ilsum. He had no time to say a word. Suddenly the guards came running. Aizaha told the guards that they were worthless since they came to help when their lord had already moved the horses. Aizaha also told them that the leader of the Black Cat Alliance had changed his mind, and it was decided to postpone the establishment of the sect in Ilyang Prefecture, and explained that he had decided to use Ilsum as an example. And if anyone is thinking of questioning the decision to form a sect, the same thing will happen to them. The guards stood at that time, unable to utter a word. The guy told them to get out of the way if they cared about their lives. As Aizaha walked past the guards, he heard them discussing being the errand boy. Some didn't believe it and some realized his clothes had changed, but it was definitely the boy from the inn. Then Aizaha turned to them and said he was that boy and asked them if it pissed them off that he was someone six. Also, Aizaha said that if there were any here who wanted to join Ilsum in hell, he would send them to him. Suddenly someone in the crowd asked why he had killed the Lord. Then Aizaha asked in reply, did the wretch have a good reason for killing the people around him? After that, Aizaha left. He came to the inn where Cha met him. Cha asked why Aizaha had returned so early, for he had gone to kill Ilsum. Aizaha replied that Ilsum was already in heaven, and Cha could go there too if he had committed crimes. Cha didn't believe it. Aizaha replied that if he didn't believe it, he could see for himself. Cha was in doubt as it had been a moment since he had left. And to top it all off, Aiza hadn't even had a scratch on him since the massacre of Ilsum. And how did someone so helpless become so strong in such a short period of time? Aizaha told him to make sure he cleaned up before he left, and he ordered him to keep the inn clean in general. The anger wouldn't leave Cha. He didn't understand how an errand boy could order him around and humiliate him. After taking care of urgent matters, Aizaha decided to practice his calmness. The guy realized that he was getting stronger much faster than he had bargained for, and he shouldn't miss this opportunity. Therefore, Aizaha practiced all the techniques he had set aside in his memory to perfect himself. Rumors spread that Ilsum had died, and the rumor was that he had been killed by a servant from Zaha's inn. Some thought it was impossible. Some thought the boy was dead too. Cha witnessed these conversations. At this time, Aizaha had finally conquered the Tree Kingdom, and was getting closer and closer to the Kingdom of Darkness. Even if Aizaha had achieved it in his past life, his cognition was too quick and superficial. But this time, the guy was just sure that he could become stronger than in his previous life. When he woke up, he noticed that his room was a bit rattled. He assumed that it must be because of all the impurities that had come out of his body during his progression from the tree realm to the realm of darkness. The smell was also disgusting, but this stench was a sign of his progress. It only meant that his body was much cleaner than before. Cha started screaming at that time and could not understand what was stinking, as if it were rotting. He went into Aizahi's room and asked what had happened. Cha asked the guy that did he really shit his pants? Cha reminded Aizahi that he was supposed to leave the room to do his business, not shit anywhere. After that, Aizaha decided to take a bath. Cha meanwhile held the knife in his hands and asked the guy to keep his distance. Unexpectedly, during the procedure, Cheyenne came to Aizaha. The boy was surprised and asked why she had come. The girl explained that she had come to help with the bathroom. Aizaha didn't know what she was talking about at all. Cheyenne said it was Brother Cha's will. The girl also added that if Aizaha didn't want her, she could at least wipe him when he was done. Aizaha said that there was no need for her to come here, and he promised that he would tell Cha about that too. He added that Cheyenne didn't need to do this kind of thing anymore, since she is not a girl of easy behavior who sells her body, but a hostess who welcomes visitors. So she needs to behave accordingly. Aizaha at this time thought about how that bastard Cha kept forcing Cheyenne to do something he didn't even ask for. Meanwhile, the girl thanked Aiza and apologized about what happened earlier. The guy replied that it's all in the past. The girl said that she heard that Aizaha is strong, and asked why he turned a blind eye to the apology that time. Aizaha explained to her that it was necessary so he could use it as an excuse for revenge. The girl didn't really understand what he meant. Guy added that when it comes to a gentleman's revenge, 10 years is a tolerable amount of time. And when it comes to the revenge of the errand boy, the report starts from the moment of the beating. The girl asked that isn't there such a saying? Aizaha smiled and replied that he had just made it up. And Aizaha wondered how dare they use beauty in such a way. After all, things like feminine charm didn't work on him anyway. Memories from his past life popped into his head. And he called himself a crazy dog, and using women against him didn't work because his tastes were too perverted. So they had to use other people and the plan failed. Aizaha ordered himself to stop thinking so much. Suddenly Cha burst in and started shouting that he shook. Aizaha asked him why he was afraid of some fire. Cha explained that the source of the fire was Isahi's house. That didn't sound so fun anymore. The boy went there. He noticed that his house was on fire and the third Cho brother was threatening people and saying that he would kill anyone who helped the errand boy. At this time Aizaha shouted from the crowd to Sampyeong that his brother's grave was behind the inn, and he thought of burning it without bringing back the body. Hatred gripped Sampyeong and he turned around and asked who it was that shouted. Aizaha stepped forward and said it was him. The boy also asked Sampyeong how dare he do such a thing. At this time, a man approached Sampyeong and asked if he was the same boy. Sampyeong confirmed this, and the man asked if he was claiming that he had brought him here to kill some kid on the run. The man also asked if Sampyeong had said that his brothers intended to establish a sect in Ilyong Prefecture. The man was surprised that with all of this, they had one single errand boy causing difficulties. That's ridiculous. The man also added that if he were to swing his sword for some brat, the entire Murima world would raise him to laughter. So the man told Sampyeong to deal with it himself. This made Sampyeong very angry. The man told him that if his abilities were so negligible and he was unable to take down someone 6, reuniting with his brothers would be his best option. Sampyeong didn't know what to say to him. Aizaha said that the man was right, for there must be a modicum of common sense in him. Aizaha told Sampyeong that he shouldn't make others do his job, but rather just fight him. Aizaha offered the condition that the loser would go down in flames. The man, meanwhile, noticed the servant's inflated ego. Then the man said that he Jisik of the Dark Storm Castle would witness the outcome of the battle. Sampyeong couldn't get his head around how his brothers could lose to this brat. Aizaha noticed that Jisik is quite smart. It's as if he's giving Sampyeong a fighting chance while he himself is trying to gauge Aizaha's abilities. Sampyeong drew his sword and approached the guy. However, he noticed that Aizaha wasn't pulling out his sword and asked the guy what he was doing. Aizaha smiled and replied that he didn't need a sword to deal with someone like him. Anger immediately gripped Sampyeong and he threw the first punch. And of course, he missed. Aizaha seized the moment and struck back. Sampyeong groaned and fell to the ground. Aizaha told him to stop overplaying it since he wasn't even fighting at full strength. Sampyeong immediately pounced on the boy. Aizaha told him that his brothers were just as impulsive, and it would be best if not one of them returned to the village. After saying that, Aizaha destroyed him. The crowd started talking about how the errand boy had dealt with Sampyeong so easily. No one could understand what had happened. Aizaha, meanwhile, looked at the burning inn and couldn't understand what they were so displeased with it that it was worth setting it on fire. Jisik came over and told Aizaha that he definitely had talent. After that, he left and said goodbye that if anything happened, they would see each other then. Just as suddenly Aizaha asked, calling him a freak, where he went. Jisik didn't expect the guy to dare stop him. Aizaha said he wasn't worth playing with, and he didn't care who Jisik was. After that, the guy held out his sword. The guy said that if he knew and saw the person who tried to kill him and burn down the inn, does Jisik really think Aizaha would be so kind and let him go? Jisik, not paying any attention, went forward. But Aizaha used a technique and overtook him, and Jisik proved to be a worthy opponent. However, he too was not to last long. Aizaha defeated him. Cha was also among the crowd. He could not believe that Aizaha had now sent Sapyeong to the next world as well. However, far more important to him was who this Jisik was and where he had come from. Suddenly, Aizaha turned to Sapyeong's guards. He asked them who gave them the order to burn down someone else's house. He also asked them if they wanted him to give them what they deserved. The guards in one voice began to apologize and asked that Aizaha let them live. The guy asked again on what grounds they burned down his house and why he still hasn't gotten an answer to the question. Cha intervened and told Aiza that he didn't think their act was motivated by a desire to get rid of the infernal stench emanating from the house, and added that smelling that odor for the first time made him want to burn it too. The crowd also began to ask why the hotel smelled like shit. Aizaha sighed and thought that maybe he should kill that asshole Cha. But he pulled himself together and told Cha to gather all the warriors and rebuild the inn with their help. Cha began to ask why he should be doing this. Aizaha replied that it looked like he had been too kind lately, and he should teach Cha a lesson. Cha then replied that since they would be doing it, they should put more effort into it. And since the place is so much bigger now, they will erect an imposing two-story building. Aizaha ordered a wall to be erected along the outskirts and a training hall to be built, as well as a space for classes. Cha then asked if he really wanted him to build a dojo instead of a hotel. Aizaha replied that it was worth building both in the same place. Cha clarified that they would call it Zaha's Dojo Inn. Aizaha ordered that during construction, he would look for talented people. Cha then asked if Aizaha intended to start the sect he had mentioned earlier. The boy confirmed that he did. Cha then asked if he thought the Black Cat Alliance would stand aside. The guy replied that if they got in, he'd take care of them. And the cult is just a formality. Everyone will go on about their business as usual. Cha asked what Aizaha planned to name the sect. Without thinking for a long time, Aizaha replied that the sect would be called the Full Moon Sect. Thinking back to the past, Aizaha knew that the Full Moon Sect was the first sect he had founded. And now it would be established again. Cha hesitated and asked if he should call Aiza the owner of the moon now. The boy replied that he could call it whatever he wanted. Cha said watching him for the past couple of days, he realized that Aizaha was no longer the man he knew. So he decided to ask why Aizaha had let him live. And he explained that the more he thought about it, the less he understood why. Then Aizaha smiled and replied that he had kept him alive to bully him. Cha replied that it was probably better than death. After that, the guy went to perfect his chi techniques. He knew how important it was to protect others from his past life experiences. Cha, meanwhile, was busy building. One day, Cha reported that people from the Black Cat Alliance had come to visit Aizaha, and the Cho brothers always greeted them as honored guests. Aizaha asked how many, and Cho replied that 2 had come. Cha said that they had previously greeted them cordially and asked how to treat them now. Aizaha replied that he would personally go to greet them. Cha asked if he was going to fight. Aizaha replied that they would most likely turn a blind eye to the murder of the Cho brothers and demand that he pay them a toll. In addition, they will offer Aizaha to join the alliance and tell him about themselves. Then Cha asked what he would do if it turned out that they had not come to greet him. Cha also added that it would be extremely hard to pull with the alliance now. Aizaha replied that it might be for him but not for Aizaha. Cha was frightened and asked that they should accept death. Then Aizaha replied that they would try to kill him first. But Aizaha wasn't going to die. Cha led the boy to the guests and wished them a good time. Aizaha approached, and one of them introduced himself as a member of the Black Cat Union of the Gold Peak branch. The other said he was Han from the Golden Peak branch. Aizaha, meanwhile, sat silently. The representatives of the Black Cat couldn't understand how dare he act like that, or if he even knew who they were. Chanpang said that he heard that Aizaha killed the Cho brothers. The guy looked into his eyes and replied that he had. Aizaha then asked why they needed this information and if they were related in any way. The guy also emphasized that they had different surnames. The Black Cat representatives still didn't understand who this guy thought he was. And how could he even think he could compete with anyone since he had gotten rid of the Cho brothers? Aizaha asked them why they were quiet. At this time, the boy thought that maybe they were so quiet because they had come to collect money. Chanpang explained that the Cho brothers had promised them to start a sect in that province. But Aizaha had killed them, and went on to say that if they reported this to the Black Cat Alliance, things would get very complicated because he had disrupted their workflow. Then Aizaha asked if they wanted him to pay them bribes like the Cho brothers did. Chanpag smiled and replied that Aizaha was pretty smart. The guy suggested a drink first. Aizaha called Mrs. Song over and asked her why they hadn't brought that lousy duchu and drink yet. He told her to bring some snacks. Mrs. Song was not left alone by the fact that Aizaha thought the precious duchu and liquor was lousy. Khan told the guy that alcohol, that's fine. But he hoped they could agree on the terms before they left. Aizaha replied that they should focus on the alcohol right now. Khan got angry and slammed his fist on the table and yelled that they had had enough. And now Aizaha would get away with it. Aizaha asked why he was doing this and if, really, he wanted to test his hand in battle with him. Han couldn't understand why Aizaha was so cocky, so he assumed he had some sort of plan. Then the guy asked them that did they really think the Black Cat Alliance could show up there and bail the two of them out like nothing happened. Aizaha advised them to think about it, and hinted that he would not have massacred the Cho brothers if he feared an alliance. Aizaha also said that he of course recognized that their skills were far superior to the Cho brothers, since those three were real mediocrities. After that, the guy warned that if they didn't make a decision by the time Miss Song came, he would fight to the death with the two of them. Mrs. Song returned, and then the representatives of the Black Cat told the guy that they would definitely put in a good word for him in the alliance. He has nothing to worry about. Aizaha replied that he would take their word for it. And the representatives said that the death of those rotten brothers was a pleasure to them, and they couldn't stand them at all. The representatives of the Black Cat drank the liquor and Aizaha allowed them to leave. And of course, they flew out of there. Cha asked the guy if he was afraid to let them go just like that. Aizaha explained that if he killed those two now, he'd have to deal with the entire Black Cat Alliance. After all, no matter who runs the brothel, they will simply continue to obey the one in whose hands the power lies. Aizaha knew that the person to keep an eye on in this neighborhood was the 12th Lord, the Great Rakshasa. The lad realized that there was no need to attract that man's attention right now. Aizaha told Cha that he would be busy training for a while, so the management and all other duties remain on him. Aizaha thinks Cha might even take over General Moon's position temporarily. Also, the guy reminded that if Cha quickly squanders all the money, he will be fired from that position right away. Cha was surprised that Aizaha had only threatened him with dismissal, but the guy immediately explained that fired means dead. Cha began to shout that this was not their agreement. Aizaha replied that this was his place and therefore his laws. Aizaha once again congratulated Cha on being promoted to general, as he was the first to be so honored. Aizaha walked away and Cha in his head called him a jerk. Cha never thought his life would turn out to be this hard. Aizaha came to the forge. Kum was happy to see him and asked if Aizaha had done well. The boy replied that he had. The subordinate asked the guy if he would like a specialty. Aizaha replied that he would, with pleasure, one portion. Kum said it's amazing that Aizaha was able to defeat the Cho brothers from the Black Cat Alliance, and then also Jisik and Sampyeong. Kom asked that shouldn't the Black Cat haunt him after something like that. And if that was really the case, then now wherever Aizaha went, a lot of people might die. The guy was thinking at this time, wondering if he had always been like this. And come to think of it, even in his previous life, there had been fights with the Cho brothers. Aizaha explained that they were in no danger now, but one way or another the conflict would come up in the near future. Aizaha also added that he was going to attack them by himself, but others should not be hurt. Then Kum asked if he was going to attack the Black Cat alone. Aizaha replied that it was hard to believe, but it was true. Kum said that he still couldn't get over the fact that the boy had defeated his brothers single-handedly. Kum said to make sure Aizaha remembered the taste of the noodles they were about to eat. He asked him to be sure to treat him to the same at his hotel. The boy replied that a poor man like him was not capable of that. The cousin started laughing and asked that he was not the owner of Zaka's Inn. At this time, a subordinate came up, and hearing the conversation asked Aiza that if he was an employee of that hotel. Kum and his boyfriend were about to taste the noodles when suddenly someone burst in and shouted for Aizaha to go to the exit immediately. Kum looked at the lad and asked him to be careful as it smelled like rain. Aizaha replied that nothing was impossible for their master. The guy went outside and an unknown person told him that he heard he was the one who had the nerve to kill Jisik from the Black Cat Alliance. Aizaha replied that he had heard that name somewhere. The unknown man became angry, lowered his mask and said that he had been sent by the Black Cat. Aizaha recognized it immediately. It was the two-eared Phantom V, and it was after all the one who attacked and killed Aizaha in his past life. Vi told Aizaha to tell immediately why he had killed Jisik. The boy replied that he had done it because he had burned down his house. V replied that he understood the motive, but that Aizaha had buried himself with it. Then the boy asked him if he seriously thought that killing him would do him good. Aizaha said that since that was the case, he was sorry that V had been deprived of not only hair but brains as well. V got angry and replied that it seems that before wiping out Aiza should be taught a lesson. After saying that, V pounced on Aiza. He realized that the two-eared phantom was actually two people. Aizaha knew that if V was in danger, someone would immediately come running to save him. The battle had begun. Aizaha remembered Gu Yensu, who had been hiding all this time, to launch a final counterattack. Now, however, Aizaha would not allow him to continue hiding. Cha ran out and started shouting to Aizaha. The guy told him not to interfere. He also told him to listen carefully to the rain. Cha, of course, understood nothing. Then Aizaha said that there was another one hiding around here somewhere and to be careful. Cha tried to see where the other one was. The second warrior jumped from the roof of one of the buildings. Cha hadn't expected Aizaha to be so perceptive. The guy at this time was glad that he had finally lured him out. V realized that Aizaha knew from the beginning that there were two of them. V told his partner that this guy is not as easy as he looks. That's why we should be careful. Cha shouted that Vi was a bald freak and that he would be his opponent. Therefore, he should gather his strength properly. V asked Cha if he knew what his nickname was. Then he added that there was no need for someone who was about to be cut to pieces. Cha began to shout that he would fight this battle now with all his honor and pride. No one present could understand what was the matter. Cha told V that he must be sad. But after he chops off his head, he won't have to worry about being bald anymore. After saying that, Vi couldn't stand it and attacked Cha. After a second, Cha was already lying on the ground with no strength. Aizaha looked at him and ordered him to get up immediately, or else he would personally finish him off. After these words, Cha immediately regained consciousness. Cha woke up and the first thing he noticed was that his clothes were now all muddy. Aizaha started yelling at him and asked if he really thought it would work. Cha replied that if it weren't for that rain, they would have definitely bought it. And the instant they would have lowered their defenses, he would have severed their heads with a precise blade movement. V meanwhile told his partner that they were fooling around in front of them, and Cha, in the meantime, to look at the bald asshole as he's already shaking, and that his lack of hair made it look like raindrops were dancing on his bald head. V was overcome with hatred. He was about to pounce on Cha, but his punch was blocked by Aizaha. A fight ensued. The battle went on for several minutes, and Aizaha thought that since his return to the past, this was the first time he had felt something like this. Aizaha smiled and wondered why fighting was so much fun. V's partner was just pissed off by this. Aizaha pulled out his sword and everyone noticed some sort of scarlet light covering his blade. V and his partner realized it was the energy of the sword. The two of them attacked Aiza. The boy concentrated and destroyed the two with a single sword thrust. Cha walked over to the boy and thanked him for working so hard. Aizaha looked at him and told him to behave as usual. Cha asked Aizahi who these people were. The boy replied that they were members of the Black Lily. Cha almost fainted, for he knew that the Black Lily was more powerful than black cats. And this is all taking a serious turn. Aizaha turned around and said he was going to take a shower. Cha replied that it was up to him, and he could safely leave the cleaning of the place to him. Kum at this time wondered if he meant that what he had killed the Cho brothers was true. Aizaha, meanwhile, was taking a bath. The guy noticed that the growth of his strength had definitely accelerated considerably. But what bothered him, that the people who were supposed to die in the distant future at his hand are dead now. And now the list of factions to be dealt with also includes the Black Lily and the Black Cat Alliance. The guy noticed that the sounds from the street suddenly stopped abruptly. Suddenly, an unknown person burst into his room. They were brothel owner Lee, surname Song, and brothel owner Shur. The guy asked if Cha had encouraged them to do it. They became furious and attacked the guy. Aizaha burst out of the bathroom in a way that shattered it. and then he used a technique that made the two of them flatten against the wall. Aizaha assumed that they had probably attacked, knowing that he wouldn't have a weapon on him while he was taking a bath, and it was probably Cha's doing. Aizaha immediately went in search of Cha. He asked one of his subordinates where the jerk was, who replied that he wasn't here. Aizaha advised him to be very honest with him. The subordinate replied that it was true, and he had not seen him since he had left a little earlier. Aizaha was angry. He didn't know if Cha had anything to do with this attack, but he knew for sure that anyone who bared his fangs at him would die. Suddenly the guy heard someone yelling for someone to attack him, and he would slaughter them all. Aizaha immediately recognized it was Cha. The boy ran at the screams and saw a mountain of bodies in front of him, and he noticed that in the distance a crowd of unknown people were about to attack Cha, as he was already barely breathing. Aizaha was surprised that Cha was still alive. However, as soon as Cha saw Aizaha, he immediately begged him to save him. Cha started shouting for Aizaha not to stand like a stumbling block, but to save him immediately. Aizaha replied that if he was asking for help like that, these guys should take swords in their hands and attack him. Those drew their swords, and Cha started yelling that there was no need to be afraid and that this guy was just an errand boy. They decided to all attack Aiza together, but the guy didn't take a minute to straighten them all out. After that, Cha came up and finished them off as they dared to stick a knife in his back. Cha asked Aizaha that if he had personally come to save him. Aizaha replied that he had not, and that he was going to kill him personally with his own hands. The boy explained that he thought Cha was somehow involved in the case. Cha replied that he had not expected to have such thoughts. Cha also added that he didn't expect these creeps to come to Aisu's house as well. The guy revealed that he was enjoying his bathroom treatments when Ju along with Jiam came to get him. Cha replied that they still didn't seem to understand, that even masters a level above the Cho brothers had died at the hands of Aiza if they looked down on him. Cha called Aizaha's attention to the state he was in and asked if Aizaha thought Cha was driving around with those freaks. Aizaha replied that it seemed to be true. Cha exhaled a little, for Aizaha was no longer trying to kill him. Aizaha said that he wasn't even from the Black Rabbit Alliance after all. He asked how many more people he had to kill. Aizaha also suggested that apparently they think he's an easy target and just an errand boy from Zaha's Inn. Then he doesn't know how many more men of Ilyang County he needs to kill so that such useless things don't happen again. Cha said that he would make sure that no one would even dare to think of such nonsense. Aizaha told him to give it a good try and left. On the way, he thought about the fact that he just wanted to bask in the bathtub. Cha continued to supervise the construction, and Aizaha continued to train. A whole month went by like that. Aizaha decided to pay a visit to the construction site. He was surprised that this was all they had managed to do in a whole month. Cha explained to him that it would take at least a year because of the scale of the project. Aizaha then asked if it couldn't be quicker. Cha replied that he too would like to speed up the process. But things won't go any faster if you just throw a bunch of random people into production. He then added that he had recently found a capable manager, and now things were getting a little faster. Cha introduced this guy named Ja as the construction manager. Aizaha recognized him immediately. Ja, the artisan who was famous when he was the head of the Hao clan. That was the meeting. Cha told Ja to greet the head of their clan, Aiza. The boy immediately introduced himself and said that he had taken the job on Uncle Jiam's recommendation. The guy continued that according to Uncle Jiam, if he did well, he was willing to be given the position of the head of the builder clan. And also the uncle said that there would be no need to pay some kind of fee to the clan. The boy checked with Aizaha to see if that was true. Aizaha confirmed it. Then Ja replied that he had enough of this already, and he would make something truly spectacular out of Zaha's hotel. Before doing so, however, Ja wanted to ask Aizaha something. Aizaha promised that he would listen to him. Then the guy told me that they were planning to build temporary barracks there for accommodation and food, and it would be fine if the head would treat them to a good meal once in a while. Then Aizaha ordered that Cha should send people from Manhwa, Iwa and Siwa here every night, so that they would cook delicious food and treat the local workers. Cha replied that this would be done. Aizaha said that if he liked the construction, Ja would be the chief of the construction clan. The boy promised he wouldn't fail. Aizaha went to Kum's forge. Kum asked the lad if he had met Ja. Aizaha replied that he had met him. Kum told him that he was a very talented kid, and that he was so diligent that he could go day and night looking for work. Aizaha couldn't even think that Ja had something to do with Kum, and he is that Uncle Jiam. But the fact that Jia belongs to the Hao clan is very favorable. Kum said he wanted to make a gift as a souvenir for Aiza. He told the guy that if he had a weapon he wanted, then Aizaha asked if he had ever made anything that could be called a famous sword or a precious sword, since he would not be able to get money from them, and if rumors spread, such treasures would definitely come to steal, and it would be good if they were not killed. And even if you imagine that Combe was lucky enough to sell this, others will start threatening him to make them the same. Then Aizaha said let the weapon not be sharp and the weight is not important either. It was enough that it would not break or bend. Aizaha wanted an indestructible weapon. Kum wondered, what if you only focus on sturdiness, and whether it's a cane, club or spear, does it really matter what shape it is? Aizaha replied that it did not matter. Kum promised to take it to heart and give it to Aizaha someday. After that, the guy went home. 2 unknown men met him on his way. One of them asked him if he was the owner of Zak's Inn. Aizaha looked at them carefully and replied that no, and that he was just an errand boy, but those 2 asked the guy to stop. One of them said he was a messenger of the Black Rabbit Alliance, and he's here to give him the words of his superior. The messenger said that the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion wanted to see Aizaha, and he sent an invitation, not assassins. So it's best not to refuse, because if the messenger came back with nothing, there would be no more assassins. At this time, the boy thought only of the fact that he was being called Mr. Aizaha. Aizaha replied to them that he didn't have to come if that Golden Phoenix Pavilion master of theirs called him. The messenger replied that if he did not accept the invitation, he could just run away, and then he would keep his life, and there will be no killing of innocent people in Ilyang County. It's good for everyone. Aizaha clarified that he is saying that if Aizaha wants to continue to be the head in Ilyang County, he needs to bow his head to the Black Rabbit Alliance. And if he doesn't, he must leave Ilion. The messenger replied that it is so. Aizaha said that running away is not manly. Aizaha will meet him in person. Then the messenger asked if Aizaha should be given time until evening, or if he would follow them right away. The guy replied that he was, after all, going to meet a powerful man from the Black Rabbit Alliance, and couldn't come empty-handed, and in such plain clothes. Aizaha said that if the messenger told him where to go, he would get there himself. The messenger thought that was a great idea. He then revealed that the location of the mountain hut on the Chongho mountain hunting grounds. In parting, the messenger reminded him that if Aizaha wanted to escape, he had better run as far away as he could. Aizaha replied that he had already said he wouldn't run away. After arriving home, the boy told Cha about it. Cha started shouting that the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion was a murderer obsessed with money. Aizaha explained that he didn't call him, but Aizaha decided to go. Cha decided to round everyone up now and make war. Aizaha told him that he was a real idiot for gathering all of Ilyang's young boys to die. Then Cha said that Aizaha was crazy to go by himself because he would die there, because that bastard wouldn't just leave him alone. Cha asked Aiza to bring at least him along. The guy was surprised and asked if he was serious. Cha replied that, to be honest, he wasn't. Aizaha said, his bloody mouth as usual. The guy promised to be back soon and ordered that Cha should work on his manners. As a farewell, Cha asked Aiza to wear at least this. The boy turned around and saw the clothes that Cha treasured in front of him. Aizaha couldn't understand what was going on with Cha today, so he explained to him that his clothes might get torn since he was not going there to have fun. Cha smiled and replied that he could at least tear her to shreds. Aizaha smiled and threw on his clothes and promised he would be back soon. Meanwhile, the messengers were standing at the gate of their destination. One of them said that he was only waiting because of the pavilion master's orders, and he was sure that the errand boy had already escaped. But then Aizaha appeared on the horizon. The messenger thought he had decided to duck his head and be subservient to the union of the Black Rabbit. However, he couldn't help but exclude the fact that, for an errand boy, this guy was pretty brave. The messenger was sure that the boy had become overconfident because he had killed the 3 Cho brothers. The messenger greeted Aiza politely and said that the master was already waiting for him. The messenger approached the master and said that he had brought the owner of the permanent courts of Zak. In reply, the master told him not to make him laugh, as what kind of owner could an errand boy be? The master said he was wondering what a guy who had snagged himself 3 brothels looked like. He also said that Aizaha looked even younger and more ignorant than he expected. The master also said that since Aizaha did not run away and came to him, then he had something to say. and he asked if Aizaha wanted him to take care of him. The master shouted that the boy did not know his place and was too greedy. In response, Aizaha silently pushed back his chair and sat down across from the master. This made him very angry, and he called Aiza an insolent scoundrel, asking who let him sit down. Then Aizaha clarified that he needed his permission to sit down. The messenger was watching from the side, and he thought the errand boy had completely lost his mind, since even if he bowed his head, it wouldn't be enough. The master told Aizaha that it was obvious he was out of his mind. The boy smiled and replied that it was true. The master started laughing loudly and said that the guy was funny. After that, he asked how old Aizaha was. Aizaha countered by asking what he was after, and if he had called him just to find out his age. And if that was the case, then it was his turn. Aizaha gave the master a choice. Either he would die alone, or he would have his subordinates slaughtered first. The master immediately lost his temper and called the guy an insolent scoundrel. He wanted to spare him, but now it would be hard not to kill him. After saying that, Aizaha instantly threw himself at the master and used one of his techniques. Thereupon, Aizaha asked that he did not really want to spare him, saying that he was not one who needed his mercy. The master at this time didn't understand how this was possible, since he had definitely heard that Aizaha was an errand boy at the inn. Aizaha at this point asked the master why he was standing, for he was ranting as if he could kill him. The master decided that he would attack first. However, each of his attempts to wound the boy were unsuccessful. Aizaha at this time thought it was worth it to try and fight the master from the Black Cat Alliance, but as expected he was only a third-rate opponent. And then the master noticed that Aizua's sword was burning with fire. He realized that he was finished. Aizaha had defeated the master. Thereupon Aizaha looked at the messengers and at the warriors and said, "This is what will happen if you touch an errand boy from Ilion." The messenger thought that the master couldn't even fight back properly, and he was able to be overpowered so easily. Aizaha asked who wished to die after the master. There was silence in response. But suddenly someone said that right now Aizaha was attacking the Black Cat Alliance and asked how he was going to deal with it. The boy asked why he should care, because they would be dead here in no time. Aizaha says he's counting to 3 and everyone kneels. Those who can't bend their knees, he'll send them straight to the master first. Aizaha began the report. On the count of 2, everyone was already on their knees in front of him. It was a little unsatisfying. Aizaha remembered that the reason he endured becoming a demon was because of his martial arts training. He spent all his time meditating, not eating, not sleeping. All this suffering was for a moment like this. Suddenly one of the warriors asked Aizaha if he would spare them. In reply, Aizaha asked why he should spare them. The warrior recalled that he had also said that if they kneeled, he would spare them. Aizaha explained that he had said he would send those who didn't stand up first. Mercy was out of the question. The warrior began to beg that Aizaha would let them live. The boy asked again why he wanted it. The warrior replies that if Aizaha is going to kill them all, do they have any choice but to fight to the death? Aizaha said you should introduce yourself first before offering a deal and trying to negotiate. The warrior replied that his name was Sima and he was a secret inspector. Such a man Aizaha did not remember. He speculated that maybe Sima had died along with the master when the Black Cat Alliance dealt with his bad deeds. Sima said that if Aizua's skills were similar to the master, with their combined strength they could win and turn the tide of the game. Then Aizaha said that Sima is accepted, and if he's a quick thinker, it's natural to try to survive. Sima rejoiced, but in a moment asked what would happen to the others. Aizaha replied that they needed to get rid of everyone they knew. After all, someone might report a black rabbit to the Alliance. And if a full-scale war with the Alliance were to break out now, it would make it harder for Aizaha to move towards his goal. The others were told by Aizaha to attack him. He didn't even mind if they all attacked together. The warriors had already pulled out their blades when suddenly Sima stopped everyone and asked that wouldn't everything be resolved if they just didn't report to the Alliance under any circumstances. Aizaha asked why he should believe it. Then Sima asked him to believe it personally. Aizaha replied that there was no such thing, and told Sima that whether it was his facial features or his eloquence, he seemed to be the one responsible for everything after the master. Sima replied that he was right. Then Aizaha told him that his superior, the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion, was dead. And if he came to his superiors with such news without a scratch, he would not be left alive. Aizaha also said that all those warriors were just scum, since the master died and no one even rushed to his aid, everyone just watched him die. Aizaha went on to say that perhaps they would manage to survive, but the stigma of being a traitor wouldn't go anywhere. And it's obvious what kind of life awaits them in a Black Cat alliance. The boy shouted that it was time to start, but Sima interrupted him and said that he had thought of a way and asked Aiza to listen to what he said and then make a decision. Sima said that all they had to do was to go and steal the money from the hut. Basically, commit an open crime. All of them together. Sima explained that this hut was full of money that the master had embezzled. And if the higher-ups found out, everyone in the pavilion would have to die, because they kept their mouths shut and cooperated. And this money was extracted from Ilyang County. Since they themselves will openly carry the stolen money, they will inevitably become accomplices. Aizaha asked if he was serious when he said that since they were accomplices, he would not report to the alliance, and that is why Sima asked that they not be killed. Sima replied that he was. Aizaha thought about the idea that supposedly he only cared about this now, and it didn't matter if a little later the Black Rabbit Alliance found out about it. Then Aizaha agreed and said that since that was the case, he would entrust all this work to Sima. He also called him a soldier. Sima wondered why he was a soldier. Aizaha explained that since ancient times, people with that name have been the best when it comes to recruiting soldiers for a strong organization. Sima reported that the theft had been successful, and now that they had moved the stolen money together, there was no reason to go back. Aizaha warned them not to cause trouble while they were staying in Ilion, and those who bother Aiza in this manner, he has no intention of sparing. Sima promised to settle and see to it. Aizaha told him to round up all the useless scum who normally do nothing and figure out something to keep them busy. Sima replied that he would and asked if his organization might have a name. Aizaha replied, "How's Peerless Plan?" Sima was surprised and said that he had never heard of such a thing. He immediately asked for forgiveness, as he was ignorant of such things. Aizaha replied that it was fine, and he had just created it in a hurry some time ago. But the point is to create something no matter what the result is. Sima shared that it bothered him that Aizaha was so careless to call himself peerless, because they don't even know what people can babble about. Aizaha replied that everything was fine, and to be peerless is to have a miserable life. Cha suddenly burst in and asked what was being hauled outside. And where did Aizaha get all this stuff? And if he had already learned how to steal. Aizaha explained that it was the money stolen by the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion, as well as the funds for the construction of their guest house. He couldn't understand why Aizaha had brought the Black Rabbit Union money. Aizaha replied that it was his wish, and that it was the will of the errand boy and the will of the clan head, and also the will of a thief. Cha became even more furious and asked what to do if this was the reason for the Black Rabbit Alliance to attack Ilyang. Cha kept shouting that Aizaha himself is aware that the Union is the people who steal money, not people to steal it from. Aizaha replied that he was good at cleaning faces himself, so it was fine. Cha decided that he was going to go crazy soon. Aizaha asked that Cha not to worry because if anyone from the Alliance showed up, he would just rub his face in their head. Cha replied that it sounded great. Aizaha also suggested that you could torture and torment the head of the alliance, or you could make the head a subordinate. Cha replied that torture and submission sounded great too. Then Aizaha suggested that he could just kill him. Cha laughed and replied that that was another matter. After all, it was a great plan, and he had not found a place for nothing. Aizaha smiled and reminded him that he had told him not to worry. Cha thought that if Aizaha had actually said something with meaning, then he would have calmed down. Aizaha ordered that Cha inform all the clan commanders to gather on the wasteland of Zahazin. Cha asked who exactly he was talking about, as he himself was not yet aware of all the things going on. Aizaha said to start with Duk from the merchant shop clan, then Master Kum from the blacksmith clan, and of course Ja from the builder clan. Aizaha told Cha to bring them to him immediately. Cha organized the meeting. Kum asked the head what he wanted to tell them. Aizaha explained that he wanted to tell them about the principles in the Hao clan. Duck asked, "What principles are we talking about?" Aizaha said that from now on, everything that happens in the Hao clan is solely his fault. And if there's a problem, they should tell them that it's all the clan head's doing. And if someone comes and asks where the clan leader is, though there is no need to remain loyal and silent, but simply let them know where Aizaha is. And if someone were to question them about something, it should be said that only the clan head knows about it. This is the first principle of action in the Hao clan. Kum asked how it's even a principle of action to say it's all the head's fault. Explaining further, he had no talent in making noodles. So he decided to focus on influence. Suddenly everyone was happy that Aizaha had finally admitted that he was bad at making noodles. After all, the noodles tasted really bad. Aizaha continued that somehow Uncle Jiam, who runs the forge, or Duk, who runs the inn, have no aspirations to become influential. Afterward, to make sure that there were no people among his men who wanted to be influential, Aizaha asked if he was right. Duk and Ja replied that they had nothing to look for among influential people and had not even thought about it. Suddenly, Cha raised his hand and replied that he had thought about it. Aizaha summarized that everyone in the Hao clan thinks the same way, and he wants to reduce the number of deaths of those who can't stand up for themselves by using the Hao clan. Also, Aizaha said, errand boys in hotels, entertainers or coachmen, people who made weapons, food and necessities. And then there are the many merchants, all of whom have been killed by powerful people countless times. And this injustice does not stop. Perhaps it will continue to be so in the future. Aizaha continued that if there are people who died unjustly, he, as the head of the Hao clan, plans to find out, no matter who his opponent is. Dike clarified if Aizaha meant seriously that he was going to face not only the Black Cat Alliance alone, but also the existing established forces. Aizaha replied that it is exactly like that. And if someone died at the hands of someone from Hikdo, he would kill him in return. And if someone from Bekdo killed, he would go to the Murim and kill him before the trial took place. All because Aizaha is the head of the Hao clan. Everyone present looked at the boy with admiration. Aizaha at this time remembered that in the time when he was a mad demon, Magi and Muriman, Hyukdo and Bekdo, every time they faced each other, countless people would die, as if a war had broken out. Aiza had no sympathy for these crazy primates who had mastered martial arts only to die fighting each other. However, he couldn't accept the fact that the errand boy, who carried alcohol and snacks without a second thought, had been beaten to death for no reason. As a consequence, he killed those crazy monkeys, and was easily nicknamed the Mad Demon. He was lightly pointed at and criticized. No matter what he did, he was called crazy. There were even instances where he took on a crime he didn't commit. There were many instances where he didn't explain anything, simply because he was bored. And given his temperament, he became a martial arts master in no time. No one knows what it's like to run away Muriman while training to kill the leader of the mage. Whoever he fights, he is the first to find a reason to fight. So he decided to become the protector of the weak. Suddenly Cha said that he didn't understand something. He asked if all these principles of action only made sense if one had incredibly strong powers. And okay, the Black Rabbit Alliance, but how was Aizaha going to deal with the sheer number of clans and masters in the future? Aizaha said that if he becomes the best in the whole world in the future, it would serve as a solution. Those present were alarmed by the statement, better in the whole world. Cha said he was talking nonsense again, and it was impossible to remain calm. Kum says he will support the head, and he sees that Aizaha as a man has great leadership ambitions. Jia also said that he would support Aiza and become the Hao clan's assistant and head at the same time. Dike said that there were countless clans and masters, as well as countless geniuses with outstanding martial arts skills. And it was said that most of them start practicing martial arts before they even start walking. Aizaha replied that they do. Then Duk said that it's also quite difficult for them to become peerless. And it is said that a peerless one comes from heaven once in a generation. And then Aizaha realized that the one who came from the heavens was him. The guy told his subordinates that it didn't really matter if he became peerless or not. All that matters is how much effort he puts into it. As an errand boy, Aizaha has chosen to be the best in the world, and asked everyone with him to think seriously about what they would live for in the future. The meeting was over and Aizaha was heading to his chambers. It occurred to him that the difference between the mad demon in his past life and his present one was this: that he didn't have a Palin in his previous life, but now he does. And only if he takes good care of the Hao clan will he be able to fight Muriman and Magi in the future. And if he was to be the representative of the weak, there would be no reason to swear like before. Aizaha knew he had to have a reason so he could fight Bekdo for justice, and fight those monkeys from Mado for power. And the crazy bastards from Hikdo can be beaten to death as henchmen. When someone imposes on the world an opinion different from the majority of people, if he succeeds, he becomes a revolutionary. And if he fails, he's just a crazy jerk. Aizaha decided that unlike his past life, he would become a successful crazy jerk. The head of the Black Rabbit Union got word that the master of the Golden Phoenix Pavilion had embezzled the money for himself and flipped out at the hands of the errand boy. The subordinate also said that evidence of the theft was found in the handyman's home, as well as his body. The subordinate also said that he examined his body and revealed that he died without resisting, and his subordinates were captured by Aizaha of Ilyang Prefecture. The head couldn't believe that the Golden Phoenix Pavilion master was unable to resist and died. What was even more incomprehensible to him was who Aizaha was. One of the subordinates said that it was that errand boy. Then the head was even more puzzled that the boy had beaten to death the head of the Black Rabbit Union. The head thought that one of the 12 heavenly generals had decided to play a cruel joke on them. And it couldn't be that. The head told the subordinate that it was possible that one of the heavenly generals, or masters from other provinces, and sent this boy. The subordinate responded that this was not the case, as the errand boy originally resided here. The subordinate asked that the case be given to him and promised that he would definitely handle everything. He promised that he would finish off the boy and return all the money that the Golden Phoenix Pavilion master had embezzled. The head thought for a while and turned to Master Seo. The head said that he had heard that Seo had been practicing extremely hard as of late. Master Seo stood up from his seat and replied that he was practicing the same as before. The head said that he knew his skills were better than the Golden Phoenix Pavilion master. The head then asked how long it would take him to overpower Aiza. Seo was silent for a few seconds. At this time, he thought that although he and the master had the same position, his strength was not that great. Therefore, he would be able to defeat the boy in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. But Seo decided there was no need to tell it like it was. So he answered the head that he wasn't so sure, but would find a way to overpower the guy. In that case, the head decided to hand the matter over to him and test his skills at the same time. Seo understood that the leader wanted him to fight the opponent who had easily destroyed the Phoenix Master. Seo replied to the head that he understood. The head said that he shouldn't take his subordinates and make a fuss just to eliminate this errand boy. Seo couldn't believe that the head wanted him to go there alone. Suddenly, the head warned him that if he failed, he'd better kill himself right away. Seo replied to the head that everything would be done, and in any case, if he was defeated, he would die. Seo at this time thought the head just wanted to throw it away when it was no longer useful. Aizaha paid a visit to Dike. Duck said that it had been a long time since he had stopped by. Duck asked him what he wanted to order. Aizaha replied that instead of rice chowder, he would have spicy noodles today. Aizaha was waiting for his order and couldn't figure out who the man sitting opposite was. It was the first time he had seen him in Ilion, and he looked strong. Then Aizaha noticed a Japanese sword. He knew that the man who wielded it was a 300-year-old man from Hikdo. It was a nickname given to him because of his constant longevity. He would be a big figure in Hokdu in the future, but it wasn't clear to Aizaha why he was suddenly eating noodles at Chuanlian restaurant. Seo turned to Duk and said that he had heard that a type named Aizaha lived in the area. He asked where he could find him. Dike smiled and replied that he hadn't been seen at all lately. Seo asked what had happened. He said this guy's been getting into a lot of trouble, and maybe he's already run away somewhere far away. Dike then asked why he was looking for Aizaha and said he could ask around for others. Aizaha was watching from the sidelines at this time and thought Dike was doing a great job. Seo told Duk that he had heard that Ilyang Prefecture was full of crazy people, and now he could see that it was truly deserved fame. Duk didn't understand what he meant. Seo got angry and started yelling that how dare Duk lie right to his face when Aizaha is sitting across from him. Seo then turned to Aizaha and asked him if he knew who he was. Aizaha replied that he was a scoundrel from the Black Rabbit Alliance, and said that he should behave more respectfully. Seo didn't understand how the boy knew his name. Then Seo asked him who he was. Aizaha replied that he had called him by his own name. Seo explained that he was referring to who Aizaha was. Then the guy replied that it was a very deep question and he didn't have an answer. Aizaha began to ponder who he was. Then Seo continued eating his noodles and told Aizaha that he was a jerk. Then Aizaha asked Duk when his spicy noodles would be ready. Duk thought at this time that it was so easy for Aizaha to ask for noodles when they were about to be killed. He said he was out of noodles. Aizaha didn't understand why he was saying that to him after taking the order, so meanwhile became convinced that the neighborhood was really strange and asked for a calculation. Dike replied that it was enough that he had eaten a good meal of noodles. Seo replied that if he ate, he should pay and told Dike to come over to him and get the money. Seo told the errand boy that it was crowded and suggested that he go outside. In parting, he told Duk that the noodles were delicious and that he would come again. Aizaha told Dike to bring him a kitchen knife since he didn't bring a weapon with him. Aizaha went outside, and Seo asked him what he was going to do with a kitchen knife in his hands. Aizaha replied that he had simply not brought his weapon. Aizaha smelled the knife and felt that it smelled like garlic. So he told Seo that if the garlic juice seeped into the wound, it would be quite painful. Aizaha also warned Seo that if he touched the errand boy, he would immediately get hit with a garlic-scented kitchen sword, and it would hurt a lot. Seo replied that he was just a jerk. Seo didn't understand how the Golden Phoenix Pavilion Master had lost to him. Aizaha asked Seo why he had come alone without his subordinates. After all, attacking in a crowd was one of Hyukdo's advantages. Seo replied that it's not worth making a fuss to get rid of some boy. It's just a shame. Then Aizaha asked if it was shameful for him to fight him. Seo asked Aizaha if he was sure he had killed the master of the Phoenix Pavilion. Aizaha said he assumed that Seo had just been gotten rid of. Seo replied that he wasn't going to listen to any more of this nonsense. And he doesn't understand why the errand boy is so brazen in this neighborhood. Aizaha then replied that he didn't understand why some third-rate was so cocky. This immediately enraged Seo. The battle had begun. Aizaha realized that Seo's sword was quite sharp and strong, but if one tried to stop it with a kitchen knife, the blade would be finished. But the guy also realized that injecting chi energy into the kitchen knife wouldn't be effective at all. The battle continued. Aizaha noticed that Seo's skills were not bad, but he still had much to learn. A little time passed and Seo ran out of breath. Aizaha thought it had finally gotten to him that he was the only one who had lost his mind here, and his attacks weren't working for Aizaha. Seo got angry and asked Aiza who he was and why he was able to anticipate his every move. Aizaha replied that he had come to him knowing he was an errand boy and asked why he kept talking nonsense. Seo began to shout that Aizaha knew exactly what he was talking about, and asked that maybe he had the same status as the head of the alliance and was one of the 12 heavenly generals. Aizaha replied that his skills were so sloppy that he could easily keep track of them. And there's nothing to be surprised about, since Seo has mastered the useless martial arts taught to Hookdu slaves. Seo was angry that the errand boy was calling his art the art of slaves. Aizaha said that all the 12 heavenly generals are actually slaves of the great Rakshasa, and even calling them slaves is too much, because they are just Hikdos, and puppets of the great Rakshasa, pawns of the great Rakshasa. Also the great Rakshasa's fighting cocks, the great Rakshasa's toys. Just a bunch of assholes obeying the great Rakshasa. Also Aizaha said that they are an organization providing all possible facilities and women to the great Rakshasas. Seo lost his temper. Aizaha continued that even these 12 heavenly generals disciples of the great Rakshasa wear a retarded mask because they were told to. Told to kill, they kill. Told to train, they train. Told to take over the organization, they take over. And for the entertainment of the great Rakshasas, they organized everything by defining ranks. These are the brats who pay tribute and give women to the Rakshasa only to suckle. Seo wanted to say that Aizaha was wrong, but he didn't understand why he couldn't contradict a word the boy said. Aizaha said that he need not consider himself a jerk, since the great Rakshasa is only an old pervert who will also die at his hands later. Aizaha told Seo that if he could get the first place in the leadership battle of the 12 heavenly generals, he would learn more martial arts from the great Rakshasa. But also, Aizaha asked what Seo would do with that knowledge. And does he really expect to become the best in Hookdu? And given the Rakshasa's character, he would just be wasting his time. Aizaha explained that taking advantage of this lure, the Rakshasa enslaves slaves for fun for as long as his soul desires. Seo replied that since Aizaha was so outstanding, he wouldn't duck now. Aizaha said that just as he thought it would be worth it to give Seo a bit of a beating and he would come right back to his senses. The battle began and Aizahi's kitchen knife began to blaze with fire. Seo realized that he was a master he could not defeat. But Seo decided that he would not retreat even if he died in this battle. Aizaha said at this time that he called it the taste of fire, and the official name for it is chlorinated frankincense. Seo attacked first. However, Aizaha instantly threw him back. I was watching at the time and thought Aizaha was really cool. since this is the real fighting technique of a martial arts master. Aizaha dragged Sio's body to the inn and had Cha bring him to his senses. Cha immediately started hitting Sio's face to wake him up. Suddenly, Sio came to his senses and started screaming. He was surprised that he was still alive. Aizaha said that since he had come to his senses, he should answer the question of where the great Rakshasa was now. Sio replied that even the head of the Union was not aware of this. Then Aizaha asked where the head of the Black Rabbit Alliance was. Aizaha also asked what the head has been doing lately. Sio replied that he was actively training. Aizaha realized that once again, this was a battle of ranks. Sio didn't understand how he knew all this since only the masters of the Black Rabbit Alliance had this information. Aizaha replied that his clan knew everything except what was unknown to him, though in truth Aizaha only knew it because he had gone back in time. Sio didn't understand where his clan got that information from. Then Cha said that there was nothing their How clan didn't know about. Then Cha added that the strongest intelligence organization is their clan. Sio said that just as he thought, Aizaha was not an ordinary person, but a puppet of the How clan. Aizaha didn't understand why he called him a puppet. Sio replied that he was an errand boy. At that very second, Cha slapped Sio and started yelling how he dared to call the head of their clan an errand boy. Aizaha watched from the side and thought it was strange. After all, Sio's skills weren't bad enough to be beaten by Cha. Aizaha was well aware that this asshole Cha was only acting like this because Aizaha was here. Cha turned to Aizaha and said that he had taught that jerk a lesson, and he wouldn't dare to be disrespectful like that again. Aizaha told him to come out. Then Aizaha asked Sio if he would like to join him. Sio refused. Then Aizaha replied that he would have to kill him. He told him not to answer in haste and to think carefully. Sio realized that Aizaha would really finish him off. Aizaha replied that he would not wait long. Then Sio asked to be spared. Aizaha asked what he meant, that he didn't want to work for him but asked for mercy. Sio replied that if he spared him, Sio would never bother the How clan again. And that doesn't only apply to the How clan, it also applies to all those associated with it. They would no longer have any difficulties with Sio. He swore with his sword. Aizaha originally planned to make this guy his servant, but I guess I'll just have to send him back. However, Aizaha realized that no matter how stubborn he was, if he wanted to subdue someone, he should beat them half to death 7 times. So said the great teacher Valink, whom Aizaha admired. After that, Aizaha told Sio to go. Sio didn't understand where Aizaha was sending him. Then the guy started yelling at him to get out immediately. Aizaha also said that he is ready to take his challenge anytime if he suddenly returns after getting stronger. Aizaha also added that in return, if he ever hears in the future that Sio had killed any of the merchants or commoners, he would finish him off by tearing him into small pieces. Sio replied that he understood and thanked him for his mercy despite his defeat. He promised to keep his promise until his death. Sio walked away. Cha asked Aizahi why he spared him since he should have just killed him. Aizaha replied that it was none of his business what decisions the clan leader made. Meanwhile, Sio walked home thinking that he had indeed lost. Sio recalled the chapter's words that his opponent was just an errand boy, and if he lost, it would be better to just kill himself. Sio didn't understand why he should take his own life. He realized he couldn't go back in that condition. Sio decided to get some refreshment and went to Duke's place to get noodles. Duck was surprised that he had managed to survive. Sio asked for a cup of noodles. Duck apologized and said he was out of noodles. So gave him a handful of coins and said he had paid up front. Duck asked him to go inside and cooked some noodles. Duck also asked if Sio would like anything else since he had paid too much. Sio replied that any dish could be carried. Then Duck promised to cook something for him. Sio enjoyed himself with the noodles, but his future seemed bleak to him. He knew the head of the alliance would finish him off if he returned. He couldn't leave without saying goodbye to his subordinates either. Sio said out loud that life was complicated. Dyke heard that and replied that it's not easier for the rest of us. And anyway, who doesn't find it hard to live? Sio asked if he was having a hard time too. Duck replied that since the How clan came into existence, there were no more people who demanded huge payments, and then life became easier. Sio was surprised that Duck didn't pay tribute and asked that he didn't pay tribute to the How clan. Duck said that the How clan doesn't ask for money and protects ordinary workers. And the head said that this was the reason why he created the How clan. Sio thought that Aizaha was just crazy. At that time, Duke served Seo some pork bone soup and promised that it was delicious. Seo thought it looked appetizing, so told him to eat it with his hands. That's when Izaha came in. Izaha immediately started yelling that how dare they eat pig bones without him. Duck and Seo were very surprised at this visit. Izaha joined in and they all started eating bones. Izaha asked Seo how dare he sit there eating bones when he had graciously granted him salvation. Izaha sarcastically said that he realized that he had nowhere to go, since he was kicked out of the Black Rabbit Alliance. Seo replied that he had some things to think about and that's why he decided to stop by here for a bit. Izaha asked if it was about the subordinates who remained in the Black Rabbit Alliance. Seo replied that he was and that they were like brothers to him. Izaha realized that Seo was very loyal. Seo revealed that most of the people coming to the Black Rabbit Alliance were subordinates of the former head who died at the hands of the Great Rakshasa, after which they surrendered, and so is among them. He said that the Great Rakshasa had killed the past leaders and replaced them with others. Izaha then asked how Seo had managed to survive. Seo replied that he had not held any leadership positions at that time. Izaha realized that if Seo didn't come back, other assholes would come, and maybe even the head of the alliance himself. And that would only cause him more trouble. Then Izaha turned to Seo and asked him to accompany him to the Black Rabbit Alliance. Seo asked if Izaha was going to attack the Black Rabbit Alliance alone. Izaha replied that that was exactly what he was going to do. Seo thought he was really crazy. Also, Izaha told Seo, after he had spent it, to make sure that his subordinates did not die. Also, Izaha said that if he went there alone, he would surely get rid of the head. But it might happen that he would kill not only him, but also the ordinary soldiers of the alliance. After that, Seo asked when Izaha was going to get started. The boy replied that it was right now. Dyke asked Izahi if he was in a big hurry, going there without any preparation. Izaha replied that a surprise attack is always done in a hurry. He realized that he should attack first, then the Ilyang circle would be safe. And especially if Seo's subordinates were killed, he would definitely obey Izaha. He told Seo to wait for a while, and when he had a chance, he would take care of his subordinates. Seo led him to the alliance. Izaha knocked on the gate and the guard asked who he was. The boy introduced himself as Izaha from Ilyang County. The guard replied that he didn't know any. Then Izaha told him to stop asking questions and open the door before he took him out himself. The guard replied that he wasn't going to let him get away with it this time, and sent him off to continue his drunken debauch elsewhere. It didn't take long for Izaha to use the technique and jumped through the door. The guards didn't know what to do and started shouting that there was an intruder. At the same second, a crowd of warriors came running. They began to ask Izaha who he was. The boy explained again that he was Izaha of Ilyang County. The head heard this and asked if he was the errand boy. Izaha looked at him and thought that during a verbal duel, answering a question with a question was a decent decision by a strong man. Then Izaha asked that if he was the same rabbit slave of the great Rakshasa, praised as an old jerk. Izaha then asked how dare the head of some backwoods gang, whose duty it was to be a slave, send an assassin to him. The warriors thought Izaha was a real madman. The head replied that since Izaha was here, Master Seo had lost the battle. Izaha said there was no point wasting time on useless talk and it was worth fighting. The head asked why he would do that. Then Izaha told everyone to listen, that if their leader stood against him alone, he would be a good leader regardless of his skills, and continued that he was sure the chapter had a hunch about his skills. And if the head orders his warriors to attack him first, he is not worthy to have them serve him. Izaha added that their leader was a lowly scum of a hyukdo, and also a cowardly coward who can't do anything. Wondering if Izaha thought there would be a single master who would give in so easily to the trivial provocations of an errand boy. Unexpectedly, Seo appeared and asked the head that if he was going to send his subordinates to their deaths this time too. The head asked Seo that he had not made it clear that he would kill himself if he failed. He also said that begging for mercy was not befitting of a master. Seo replied that his life was his alone, so it was up to him to decide what to do with it. And she is not so close to the head that he decides whether to live or die. The head couldn't bear such insolence, so he asked Izaha why he kept Seo alive. Izaha replied that he was just not a dummy like him. Seo turned to the warriors and ordered the Golden Dragon Pavilion to come to his side, as he was betting his life on the victory of the Hao clan head from Ilyang. The warriors went over to Seo's side. The head couldn't believe that they dared to do that. Seo told the head that if he was so confident in his abilities, he didn't need to involve his subordinates in this fight, but to fight Aizaha one-on-one. The head replied that after he dealt with that boy, he wouldn't just leave them alone. He then turned to Aizaha and said that he accepts his challenge. Aizaha replied that he should stop acting like he was being forced to do something he didn't want to do. Aizaha turned to the warriors and said that this battle is only between him and this rabbit. Therefore, anyone who interferes will die. Suddenly, one of the warriors started shouting that how dare he treat the head like that. The warrior attacked Isaac. However, Aizaha eliminated the man with a flick, as if he had killed some fly. The head looked at Aiza and said he was too noisy. Seo walked over to the boy and asked to use his sword, since undoubtedly the sword of the head of the alliance is sharp, however his is also good. Aizaha realized that for a warrior, handing his sword to someone was tantamount to trusting him with his life. Besides, it was said that this sword was a weapon that Seo treasured very much. Aizaha replied that he would use his sword and bring it back. Aizaha turned to the head and called him a worthless rabbit. The head drew his sword in response. Aizaha attacked first. Their swords met in combat. The warriors couldn't understand what the hell was going on. Some errand boy fighting the head of the Black Rabbit Alliance on equal footing. Seo realized that they weren't fighting on equal footing, and Aizaha wasn't even making much of an effort. He deliberately allows clashes in order to discern the martial arts of the head of the alliance, the fighting techniques of the great Rakshasa. Seo realized that there would soon be nothing to observe. The head of the alliance realized that Aizaha was hiding his abilities. Aizaha smiled and replied that it finally got to him, but too late. The guy threw a punch, after which the head leaned back. The head immediately began shouting to his soldiers to kill Isa. Seo began to shout to the head that he himself had said he should end his life in case of defeat. The head told him to shut up. Seo turned to the warriors and told them to stand still, and if they ignored the head's orders, the warriors did just that. The head could not believe that no one obeyed him. Aizaha began to attack him, and the head responded by turning to Aizaha as the head of the clan and begging for mercy. Wondering if he had now called him the head of the clan and not an errand boy, Aizaha began to use one technique after another, not even giving the chapter a chance to survive. Seo knew that Aizaha was hiding his true abilities, but he couldn't even think that he was so superior to the head of the alliance. Aizaha turned to Seo and said that he had saved many lives with his words. Seo thanked Aiza that thanks to his warning he was able to save his comrades. Aizaha told the warriors that he was the kind of man who respected men's thirst for vengeance. So he told those who were deeply saddened by the loss of the head to step forward. He promised with a godly heart to open the way to heaven for them to go there with the head. The boy was surprised that no one stepped forward, since it seemed to him that today was the perfect day to die, and it seemed that there would be someone who would want to go to heaven after the head. Aizaha turned to the warriors again and said that it's not every day you get a chance to challenge an errand boy. No one ever stepped forward, so Aizaha said that this was the last opportunity. After that, the guy walked over to the bloody head mask that was lying on the ground. Aizaha put it on his face and said that he was the head of the Black Rabbit from now on. Aizaha added that it doesn't matter to him whether anyone wants it or not. He made this decision on his own. Seo handed him the sword of the chapter called the Black Rabbit Fong. Aizaha thought it was as silly a name as possible, but since the Fong now belonged to him, he changed his mind about this weapon. The new head of the alliance gave orders to the warriors to dispose of the body of the former head and wash the walls and floor. Also, Aizaha told the warriors to remember that if they wanted to succeed in Hikdo, they had to clean up well first. Aizaha said he wanted to hold a leadership meeting in honor of the new beginning. Seo replied that he would come in as soon as he got everything sorted out, and told the other executives to go in first. Aizaha meanwhile realized for himself that from this day forward, he was the head of the Black Rabbit until the great Rakshasa revealed him. Aizaha decided to practice a bit with his new weapon. Seo noticed that he was using the same sword technique that the head of the alliance used, and he didn't understand how Aizaha was able to do it so quickly. The leadership meeting began and the new head asked for a report on the current state of the Union. Seo replied that thanks to the new head's generosity, quite a few soldiers from the Golden Phoenix Pavilion had managed to survive in Ilyong. Therefore, an order was needed on what to do with them now. Aizaha said that, as expected, Master Seo was worthy of praise. He told everyone to look up to him because he was not only smart, but also warm to his comrades. And to top it all off, he had shown courage before, asking that the lives of the other leaders be spared. This surprised everyone present. Seo at this time couldn't figure out if the head was always such a good person. Since Seo knew he was unusual, but not so unusual that even the servants would recognize him. Besides, he is a man with rare good stamina. In the meantime, Aizaha had ordered Seo to take care of those boys personally. Also, Aizaha said that Seo, as a talented person and a sage of the Black Rabbit Alliance, as well as a representative of the leaders, should train even more, and the chapter will give him a bonus. Seo promised to try even harder. Aizaha ordered everyone to start applauding immediately, or he would personally cut off everyone's palms. Aizaha told everyone that by practicing and encouraging each other and fighting, they would become stronger together. That is the meaning of Hikdo, and if in the process of all this they develop a deep affection through good or bad, they will certainly have brothers in spirit that they did not have before. One of the leaders turned to Aizaha and thanked him for all he had done for them. He also said that the leader could call him Commander Beck. Aizaha then told Commander Beck to give the Dragon Pavilion Master his bonus, and to put everything in order and report on the current status. And also Aizaha told Commander Beck that if any future embezzlement or cheating was discovered, he would be the first to be sentenced to death. Aizaha told the leaders that he had completely forgotten about the Battle of Ranks and asked when it was scheduled there. The leaders wondered how Aizaha knew this. It seemed strange to some that he spoke so naturally from the beginning, as if he had been the head of the Black Rabbit Alliance for a long time. Seo replied that there was still no set date. However, it is expected that one of the low-ranking celestial generals will challenge in the near future, namely the Red Monkey. Seo revealed that if Aizaha wants to increase his rank, he will have to fight a white rooster this time. Aizaha then asked where the head of the Black Rabbit Alliance was now. Seo replied that he was ranked 5th among the 12 heavenly generals. Aizaha asked where their esteemed mentor was now. Beck replied that the celestial general of the Red Snake had found a blue-eyed beauty somewhere, and presented this beauty to the great Rakshasa. So he must be with her. Aizaha marveled that the old geezer still had the stamina to get his hands on the blue-eyed beauty. In the meantime, he thought that it was quite impossible to predict the thoughts of the head. In the beginning he called Rakshasa a mentor, but then he called him an old geezer and got angry. Isaac was angry that Rakshasa was still harassing poor women through his disciples. He asked if the Muraman knew nothing about it. And why is this creep not being caught? Then Aizaha stood up and started shouting that though the great Rakshasa is his teacher, but this old man is obsessed with alcohol and women, so Aizaha intends to rebel against him. The supervisors thought it was strange that Aizaha wanted to plot treason just because he was old and leading a promiscuous life. They thought that Aizaha was just in a bad mood. Aizaha went on to say that if there is anyone who is holding on to the great Rakshasa or is going to stand in the way of the head, Aizaha has no intention of letting them live. Afterward, Aizaha asked how things were in Hixenbu. Seo said that they were always busy with gambling and auctions. Also, Seo said that at this rate, there doesn't seem to be a force nearby that can fight their financial might. Aiza was angry that they still dared to hold slave auctions. So he decided, as the leader of Hikdo, that he could not turn a blind eye to such an atrocity. The head addressed the leaders and said that their Black Rabbit Alliance would defeat Hixenbu to put Hikdo on the right path. And in the future, they would become the front-line supervisors of freeing slaves from the onslaught of the powerful. The leaders were surprised that he made this decision so easily. Suddenly, one of the leaders asked why Aizaha had suddenly decided to attack Hixenbu. Then an exasperated Aizaha asked him if he thought selling people was the right way to go. The leader replied that this was wrong. Then Aizaha told everyone that he would not tolerate injustice, and this was not why they had studied martial arts. Aizaha said that he would go to his chambers as anger was taking over him again. And he also warned everyone that he would be free to use elixirs, remedies, and anything else the Black Rabbit Alliance possessed in their business. And if anyone has any objections, they can solve it with a battle. No one has answered a word against the head. Aizaha was even glad he wouldn't have to get his hands dirty in the blood of some assholes crossing him again. After the meeting, Aizaha decided to have some time to himself. He was proud that he ended the meeting on a peaceful note, and he didn't mess around with its content either. Suddenly, a subordinate came to him and told him that the preparations for dinner were complete. He replied that he was not going to have dinner, but just wanted to wash, since the blood splatter had soiled him during the battle, but he still hadn't managed to wash himself yet. Aizaha took off his mask in front of his subordinate, and the subordinate was startled that it wasn't the old head. Aizaha told him that there was no need to fear him as he would not harm him, and henceforth he is the new head of the Black Rabbit Alliance. Aizaha told a subordinate to escort him and show him where the private training room or some sort of storage room for miracle medicines was. The subordinate escorted him to the room of miracle medicines. Aizahi was very curious about the medicines in the room. Aizaha remembered that among all the miraculous medicines there was a rare kind that all the strongest masters had, but its use had never been seen, even under the threat of it just rotting away. And only a few people were taking it. Most of the strongest masters were taking ordinary low-level medicine. Aizaha had a good rummage through the drawers, and just as he thought, there were only low-grade drugs. Looking around some more, Aizaha found a spirit atomizing pill. It was a medicine-quality product of low origin. It was just right for his condition. The action of this drug can be described as an additional accumulation of chi energy in the body. Aizaha took the pill and began to perform the technique. He knew that, to begin with, he needed to gradually suppress the heat from the spirit atomizing pill. Aizaha didn't expect it, but the heavenly pearls began to absorb the heat of this pill before we could properly practice the spiritual technique. Aizaha didn't understand how it happened. Even before the circular flow started, the medicine energy was instantly absorbed by the pearls. The guy came to the conclusion that something was wrong today. Normally, heavenly pearls absorb things like spirit, vitality, and martial resolve, but he had absorbed even the energy of the drug that Aizaha had taken some time ago. The guy couldn't realize that whether the heavenly pearls had an amazing ability to absorb the opponent's energy or inner strength. Aizaha immediately dropped those thoughts, as he only wanted to live like a madman, not really be one and become some kind of monster like the founder of Magi. So Aizaha decided that first, to understand the state of his body, he needed to observe it. Still, the guy decided to come up with a name for the technique just in case. After all, you never know what's going to happen. Aizaha puzzled for a long time and couldn't decide on a title. A divine technique to absorb the heavenly pearls of a mad demon. In a moment, the guy ordered himself to stop. Aizaha told himself to put such nonsense out of his mind, since if he had returned to the past, honored by an ironic fate, was there anything impossible for him? Aizaha wanted to pull the locker towards him with his mind. However, he remembered that apparently his martial arts and inner strength were not at a level where he could control something in the air. So Aizaha decided that no matter what, it was the duty of a madman to create a martial art that didn't exist yet. And you should not adjust to someone else's opinion, because only in this case something that did not exist before will appear. On a blank sheet of paper, Aizaha began to prescribe with the brush of his mind the undefined principle of the power of pearls. Aizaha continued to apply the technique and determined, a great technique of outstanding absorption of heavenly pearls. And the existence of his heavenly pearls is a secret. Therefore he omitted these two words and obtained the great technique of eminent absorption. Subordinates reported to Aizaha that someone was urgently looking for him. Seo reported that some woman said she had come to give him an update on the latest news in Ilyang County. Seo also added that if it wasn't for this one, he would have chased her away immediately, but he thought that Aizaha would be interested in hearing about matters concerning Ilyang County. Aizaha had no idea what kind of news there might be. After all, as long as the Black Rabbit Alliance was under his leadership, Ilyang shouldn't have any problems. Seo asked the head whether to let the woman in. Aizaha replied that he could bring her in. A woman entered and Aizaha recognized it as the same woman who had poured him liquor named Sun. Seo ordered the woman to give the head a detailed account of everything that had happened. The woman introduced herself and said her name was Song, and she was from Ilyang County. Aizaha replied that she had a beautiful name. The woman thanked him and told him that there was a place in Ilion called the Aizaha Inn. And the local errand boy, after these words, those around realized that the woman was about to start telling the chapter about himself. The woman continued that this acolyte dared to interfere with the management of the Black Rabbit Alliance. Seo realized that this woman was reporting Aizaha directly to his eyes. Aizaha replied that he understood everything. And so, this errand boy from Aizaha's Inn killed all the innkeepers and completely took over Ilion. The woman began to confirm that this was the case. Then, the head asked her if this was not good news. Sung didn't understand what the head meant. Afterward, Aizaha asked her if such a brave lady had somewhere to go. The woman replied that she had nowhere to go. Aizaha couldn't understand how it was that such a valiant girl was without a place to go. The head then asked her that maybe he should allocate her the position of managing maid. Sung was excited and of course immediately agreed. Aizaha said that a girl with a brave spirit was very valuable and she could start working in the Black Rabbit Alliance. The head said she was the right age, plus she had worked at Meiwa's inn, so she had enough experience. The girl couldn't be pleased and promised the chapter that she wouldn't let him down. In return, Aizaha asked her to promise him 2 things. Aizaha warned her that if she betrayed him, she would die, and she should especially watch her mouth. Sung thought about it and she thought she had heard it somewhere before. The woman replied that she would always follow the will of the head. Then Aizaha said that she was hired. Dream was overwhelmed with emotion. She began to thank the head and promised that she would serve him wholeheartedly in the future. The head replied that she should be grateful for the second chance he gave her, and he hoped they would work together. Sung didn't understand what chance he was talking about. Then the head took off his mask, and Sung was speechless. The girl immediately collapsed to the ground and gave no sign of life. Seo went over to her and said that it looked like she had fainted from the fright. Aizaha ordered Seo to order the servants to take care of the woman. Seo was surprised that the head wanted to take care of her. Then Aizaha asked him what he proposed to do with the man who had fainted and had nowhere to go. Aizaha turned to everyone present and ordered everyone to remember how much of a merciful man he was. The next day came and Aizaha began his training. He shouted to the warriors to each do 500 basic push-ups, and also told everyone to remember that Hikdo is about training, learning, and competing. Aizaha said that from now on they focus only on nurturing their power, except for the time allotted to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. The head yelled that no one takes Hikdo seriously right now, and that's the first reason they need to get stronger. He ordered the warriors of the Golden Dragon Pavilion to go to the backyard and prepare sandbags, bring them over, and then place them on the backs of their push-up comrades. Also, Aizaha ordered that Seo should tread with them and see to it. Meanwhile, the head ordered that the leaders do 100 push-ups, and those who are finished take wooden swords and beat those who try to cheat with them. Aizaha watched all of this and noticed that those strange ones in Hyukdo were even using Jigong just to go after the wooden swords. Aizaha shouted that they had better finish their push-ups quickly, as the Golden Dragon Pavilion would soon bring sandbags. The head shouted to them to move faster. Suddenly, one of the warriors made a sound, and Aizaha told him that he had just expressed the growing pain well with the sound. He therefore authorized the utterance of such cries and ordered them to shout as long as their souls desired it. The head pronounced that the 5 people who perform 500 push-ups the fastest would be rewarded with a day's wages, so should work harder. After the training session, the head went about his business and unexpectedly, a subordinate brought him an interesting book. Aizaha couldn't believe that it was the same compilation of the characteristics of the 12 heavenly generals. The subordinate said that he thought the chapter would be quite interested to learn about the masks, physiques, martial arts, and weapons of the 12 celestial generals. The subordinate said that he had written down everything he knew in there along with the illustrations. Aizaha found it impressive, and especially the drawings. Guy noticed that it was full of information about the 12 celestial generals that was previously unknown to him. Also, Aizahu was surprised by the fact that the red monkey is a woman. The subordinate confirmed that the red monkey, a special student, a stealer of objects commissioned by the great Rakshasa. He is also the woman who asked him to teach her martial arts as payment for the theft. The subordinate also told me that she was much lower in rank than Aizaha, and because of Qinggong's outstanding skills, there wouldn't be a single general who could easily see her. Aizaha clarified how good she was at Qinggong. The subordinate replied that from time to time geniuses are born in nature, and the red monkey seemed to have a natural talent. Then Aizaha asked him if he had any information about the great Rakshasa. The subordinate replied that it was the information at the very end of the book. Aizaha thanked Commander Beck and promised to give him gold. Beck accepted this and explained that he had not done everything to get money. A girl approached, and Aizaha introduced her to Beck as the head of the courtiers named Sun, who always speaks gracefully. Aizaha asked her what happened. Sun told her that a masked man had come and was looking for the head outside. The head was greatly surprised and asked what kind of mask the man was wearing. Sun replied that the man was a monkey mask. Beck and Aizaha realized it was a red monkey, Aizaha decided to read about it in a book. Red Monkey has incredible qigong skills. She is known to have a strong kleptomania. She became a disciple later than everyone else and after defeating several generals, has the nerve to demand a draw, escapes using qigong when at a disadvantage. Rumors also circulated that by stealing the miracle cure and drinking it, she would accumulate internal energy at an incredibly fast rate. A contractual relationship conditioned on obtaining a desired martial arts skill from a great Rakshasa in return for stealing things he desires. Aizaha studied the red monkey's characteristics and decided that he would go to this meeting. She was already waiting for him. The monkey turned to the head, calling him Brother Rabbit, and asked how he was doing. The head replied that he and the thief had not seen each other for a long time. Monkey did not expect the head to call him a thief and said that she was extremely uncomfortable with such an address. And his voice and manner of speech were strange too. The monkey also noticed that the head's hair had gotten longer. Aizaha wondered at this time what kind of atmosphere the monkey had with the head. The head said that lately, due to the fatigue of training, he often said something strange. And besides, recently learning one of the difficult techniques of the arts, the head was unable to control the qi energy in his body, his throat was affected, and yes, the temperature was quite high, so his voice became like this. At this time, the red monkey thought it was perfect that the head had suffered internal injuries. The monkey told him that she had come to greet him, and it would be great if he would just give her some money like last time. Aizaha couldn't understand what was wrong. After all, the monkey knew that he must not overexert himself before the decisive battle of the White Rooster, and she was asking for money on purpose. The guy couldn't understand how anyone could extort money like that. As expected, Hikdo is a mess. The monkey told the head that after all he would soon have to fight the White Rooster. If the head hurt himself fighting her, his efforts would again be in vain. Then the head asked the monkey that does he also go around extorting money in this way from the others. Monkey replied to the head that today his words were more harsh than ever, and it looked as if he would have to fight him once more today. Then the head asked if she had learned anything before coming to him. The monkey replied that she would just take 30 bars of silver and won't even go near the place for a while. Otherwise, the monkey threatened to fight her. Monkey at this time thought that the head said about the injuries he had received during the training and would probably try to escape her summons, and thought it was worth raising the price. Then Aizaha told the monkey that if he gave back all the embezzled money, he would let him go safely. The monkey was very surprised to hear such a cheeky reply from the head and said she hoped it was a joke. The head replied that it was no joke and he wasn't going to take any more of her challenges until she brought in the money. However, the head added that if she managed to defeat him even once, he would return all the money he had taken earlier. Aizaha realized that the desire for easy gain was essentially the root of thievery, and the monkey was in no position to refuse his offer. The monkey asked him what the conditions of this fight were. The head replied that it was up to her to decide. Monkey couldn't understand why the head was so sure of himself. She thought that he had a problem with his head, which made her feel better. The monkey then said that if their head could remove her mask within 450 seconds. Also, the monkey said that the head can resort to any methods and anything he can think of. The territory of the fight is the territory of the Black Rabbit Alliance. The monkey couldn't be happy that the head was seriously determined to overpower her in qigong skill, and he was definitely not right in the head. They went outside and the monkey began to lure the head closer to her. The head told her to close her mouth. He warned the monkey that he would teach her a lesson today. The head also added that he had told her that she would leave here safely. But looking at her behavior, someone clearly forgot their place. The monkey began to laugh and mock the head. It didn't take long for Aizaha to pounce on the monkey. He grabbed it by the mask. However, the monkey miraculously got behind his back. Meanwhile, Seo and Commander Beck watched from the sidelines. Seo noticed that Qigong monkey's skills were really good. Beck said that even the head of the alliance with his Qigong skills, it would be a bit difficult to catch her. The monkey was thinking about what she could buy with her small winnings. However, the monkey noticed that the head suddenly became even faster. At that time, the head chased the monkey with all his might. He applied that great technique of outstanding absorption. And at that moment, Aizaha managed to rip the mask off the monkey. The head held the mask in his hand and said that he had won with such ease and without any strain, without even the slightest hint of danger. Seo and Commander Beck began to congratulate him. Aizaha told Seo to take a look at that monkey sister and bring her to consciousness. Aizaha said the monkey might come around in the middle of the night after they carry its body out of there. And then she'll raid the elixir vault or steal funds from the Black Rabbit Alliance Fund. He'll make a quick getaway with the loot. But that wouldn't work with the head. So he ordered his subordinates to be on guard. And that was especially true of her sweet traps, even more so in the dark faction. The subordinates replied that they understood. Suddenly someone addressed the head and called him brother. Aizaha turned around and saw a monkey in front of him. She said that she had learned a lot from the chapter today. At that moment, everyone present saw her without her mask and thought she was very beautiful. Aizaha thought they were overreacting to such a statement. However, after looking at her, the head thought she was literally this sweet trap. In the end, the monkey was tied up. At that moment, she thought she couldn't even move a finger, but she was also pressed on her chi points. While the monkey was tied up, she came to the conclusion that the head was definitely not the brother she knew. Since his abilities, manner of speech, and even the aura around him, it all doesn't belong to Brother Rabbit. Monkey blamed herself that she should have realized this sooner and taken some action. Unexpectedly, Beck came in. He told the monkey that he had come by order of the head of the union and apologized for his rudeness. The monkey got angry and replied that it was more than just rudeness. Then Chak sat down and got some paper and ink. Monkey asked him what he was doing. Beck said that the head had asked him to sketch the face of one of the celestial generals, and in great detail. The monkey started yelling that he was going to tear him to pieces. Beck explained that he was just an old man told to paint, so he painted. Beck also told the monkey that the head is much scarier than he thinks, and he's just following orders from the head. The girl then began to ask why the chapter needed her face. Beck explained that she was famous for being a thief, and the head said that if she ran away or refused to help the Alliance, the portrait that Beck would draw would be given to the Murima Alliance. The girl nearly went mad with anger, but Beck asked her not to move as he wanted to sketch her in as much detail as possible. The monkey became angry that the old man was looking at her. Then Beck asked her how else he could sketch her in spite of those shapes. The monkey shouted for Beck to stop immediately. Then Beck replied that though she was as much a heavenly general as his head, but it is very unpleasant to hear a man who is old enough to be your grandchildren addressed in a disrespectful manner. The monkey smiled and asked Beck what he was going to do to her. Then Beck asked if he needed to draw her naked. Anger took over the monkey. Beck said he was joking and would try to do everything as quickly as possible, so there was no need to be angry with him, since he has no other choice or he will die. However, the monkey at that moment thought that Beck was not drawing it because he had no choice. Beck began to tell the monkey that, as she could already realize, the head in charge earlier was dead. Without even a decent fight back, flying over the fence and losing his limbs, he died. Beck said that he thought the monkey would also be torn to pieces and go after the head. So Beck advised her to show respect to her master after he was so nice to her. The girl hesitated and Beck asked her not to move as it was a very good pose. Beck finished with the drawings and asked the head if he liked it. Aizaha replied that the sister monkey looked just like in life. The head told Beck to take more sketches and give them to the Murim Union in case the monkey got away, and also spread the rumor of the thief's escape so that a group of followers and influential clans will know about it. And the reward money is left to Beck's discretion. At this time, the monkey asked the head who he was. Aizaha replied that he had not expected her to realize so quickly that he was not a rabbit. The monkey replied that the mask alone could not conceal his true nature. The girl asked him again who he was that he dared to behave like this with the disciples of the great Rakshasa. The monkey also asked how much self-confidence he had to withstand the wrath of the teacher. The head replied that if he had been afraid of the great Rakshasas, he would not have started all this. The monkey started shouting for the head not to call her sister. Then the head smiled and asked if the thief would fit. The monkey said yes to sister. The monkey then asked the fake brother if he had spared her so he could use her later. The girl reminded him that the most important thing in her life was money, and as long as she was well paid, she would do whatever he wanted without a single objection. Then Aizaha replied that he was planning a great Rakshasa. The monkey answered nothing and thought that he was mad. The girl revealed that the teacher is much stronger than people can imagine, and she thinks that the head is not strong enough to reach that level. The head replied that he would consider her words, but he only needed to see if she could betray him. The monkey replied that if he paid her, she would go with him. The head began to laugh and said that was how he believed her. Then the girl asked him what he wanted from her. Aizaha told him that the general would soon bring poison. He asked the monkey who he thought the poison was for. The monkey immediately thought that this crazy man was planning to poison her. The girl began to ask him not to do that to her, and he could give her orders and she would obey them without question. Monkey couldn't think of a way she could save herself. She reminded him that the head even had her portrait. However, the head still didn't believe her. Seo had brought the very purple dawn poison that the head had requested. Aizaha ordered Seo to feed it to her. Seo walked up to the girl and put the poison in her mouth. The girl resisted as best she could and told herself she wouldn't swallow it. Seo asked the head what to do since the monkey would not swallow the poison. The leader said to beat it until it swallowed. Then the monkey swallowed the poison on his own and asked the head what he wanted from her. The head told her that he was giving her 10 days. And if in that time she kills a white rat, a yellow horse, or a green dog, he will give her the antidote. He also said that there was no way the monkey would anger the great Rakshasa with this, as duels to the death are common among the 12 celestial generals in one way or another. The monkey replied that these 3 are the ones who bring only evil to people: a bandit, a murderer, and a robber. Aizaha replied that as for a thief, she was quite perceptive. After that, the head released her. Monkey rose to his feet and asked the head who he was. Then the head smiled and replied that he was a friendly neighborhood errand boy. Seo couldn't believe that Aizaha had seriously laid all the cards on the table with such ease. Monkey replied that she didn't expect the head to tell everything. The girl promised to return as soon as she killed one of those 3. Seo looked carefully at the monkey and realized that this woman really didn't take the head's words seriously. The monkey set off, and Aizaha told her in parting that even though she had swallowed the poison, the choice was hers to make. She can tell the great Rakshasa, get the antidote from him, and lay all the chapter cards on his table. Then the monkey asked him how he benefited from his fake brother's victory. Aizaha replied bluntly that there wasn't much. He just realizes that the monkey himself is tired of silently following the great Rakshasa's pathetic orders, doing all the dirty work for him, giving him all the money. The girl looked at the head carefully and said goodbye. Meanwhile, Seo told the head that he was preparing poison for the first time in his life. Aizaha asked what he had made the poison out of. Seo said that he had just mixed a laxative and a stomach stimulant and made a ball of it with his hands. The head smiled and replied that, as expected of Seo, he was very thorough. The monkey went about her business with incredible speed. However, she noticed that something about her stomach didn't feel good. She thought it was because of the poison. The girl started to get angry that the jerk had made her swallow that horrible piece of poison. All along the way she remembered the words of the head about doing the dirty work for the great Rakshasa. The monkey started laughing loudly as the head actually thought that she would risk her life and betray her teacher over such nonsense. Suddenly the girl felt too bad. She began to literally twist, and then she realized it was diarrhea. The girl landed immediately and began to say that it had better be an excruciating stomach ache. The monkey began to beg and promise that she would be a good girl for the rest of her life. She begged that it was not diarrhea. The girl kept walking down the street and didn't see any restrooms. She couldn't believe it happened in a place like this. The monkey decided that he needed to concentrate all of his internal chi energy and not let it out. Finally, the monkey found a spot in the bushes where there were no people. The girl relaxed. It was as if her inner demon was being released. Suddenly the monkey felt someone approaching very fast. His speed was comparable to her speed. She thought it was the teacher. The unknown man landed and asked the young lady if she was okay. The girl immediately started screaming that it was poison. She thought for a moment that she was talking nonsense, since you couldn't be so reckless as to blurt out to anyone that she was poisoned. The girl told the stranger that she was looking for a restroom. The stranger smiled and replied that it was a very unpleasant situation. The guy suggested she climb on top of him, as he was just on his way to his favorite shop. The girl didn't know what she should do. The stranger replied that if she was so reluctant to relieve herself somewhere deep in the woods, he could quickly take her to the restroom that was in the shop. Out of desperation, the monkey asked a handsome stranger to take care of her. The girl climbed on the stranger's back. The guy asked her to remain calm, because only in this way she would be able to overcome everything. The monkey obeyed. She also noticed that his speed matched the master. His voice was also pleasant. Monkey didn't understand where such a young master had come from. Finally they arrived, and the stranger said the restroom was in the backyard. The girl went there with a bullet. Monkey was finally able to relax, but there were noises coming from the restroom that were too loud. The girl was worried that the handsome stranger could hear it all. Having sorted out her affairs, the monkey was thinking how she could look this guy in the eye now, because he had heard it all anyway. The girl entered the shop and the stranger asked her how she was feeling. The monkey replied that thanks to him she felt much better, put some pork bones on the table, and told the stranger that he was definitely lucky when it came to food, since Duk was going to use the bones in the rice soup. The stranger replied that at least in food he should lead the way, when otherwise his luck had deserted him. The monkey took one look at the bones and asked, "What is this, since it looks appetizing?" Dyke replied that they were pig bones. The stranger at this time was enjoying the bones so appetizingly that the monkey was drooling. Dyke offered the girl a piece. However, the girl refused as she had some stomach problems anyway. Dyke held out the plate to her. The monkey couldn't resist as it looked delicious, but she didn't dare to try it. He insisted and asked her to take the bone with her hands and just eat it. The monkey couldn't resist and started eating pig bones. The girl ate the delicious food with pleasure. Meanwhile, Duk asked the stranger what their relationship was, and then the stranger replied that it was his sister. At that moment the monkey almost choked on a bone. Now that she heard that voice, she realized that the very person who was hiding under the mask of the head of the Black Rabbit Union was sitting in front of her. The head looked at her and asked if she was at a loss for words at his incredible beauty. The girl nearly went mad with rage. Not only had this asshole cheated her, but on top of that she was dealing with diarrhea in front of him. The girl collapsed to the floor, and Aizaha said what a ridiculous thing to say, fainted at the sight of her own brother. Aizaha asked Dyke that maybe she had fainted from such a delicious taste of pork bones. Dyke asked Aizaha if he was now the head of the Black Rabbit Alliance. Aizaha replied that he was. Aizaha also revealed that this girl is one of the 12 heavenly generals, namely the Red Monkey. Now it was clear to Duck why Aizaha called her sis. Duck laughed and said that she was quite nice and asked Aizaha to take care of her sister. Aizaha looked at Duck and said that it was like love at first sight. Duck was immediately embarrassed and asked him not to talk nonsense. Aizaha shouted loudly to Monkey if he was going to keep snoozing when he only had 10 days left in his reserve. The girl immediately jumped up and began to say that she would complete her task within the allotted time. The monkey thanked Duck for his incredible pork bones. Duck was embarrassed and said he would wait for her some more. The monkey quickly headed for the exit. Aizaha gestured to her that she would be dead in 10 days. This made the monkey very angry. She no longer found him so attractive. He was scary and horrible to her. Aizaha decided to go too, as he should walk around a bit in the neighborhood. Dyke said he'd wait for him some more. Aizaha reflected on the fact that after so much training in Qinggong skill, his body felt like a feather. It reminded him of times from the past when he had joined the Speed Squad, a mystical organization that no one knew about. Only those whose Qinggong skill had reached its peak were eligible to join. The organization is full of madmen who are willing to train in the art even to the death. Everyone competes with each other in the mastery of Qinggong, regardless of what alliances they are in, all in the name of earning the title of fastest of all time. In reality, he is called the Speed King or the head of the Speed Squad. Aizaha had managed to join the Speed Squad due to his exceptional Qinggong skill, but he had never managed to reach the throne of Speed King. Aizaha kept waiting to meet again with the Speed Squad masters he knew before. Aizaha reached the place where the construction was taking place. Ja was very happy to see Aizaha. Ja told Aizaha that Cha had told him that Aizaha had invaded the Black Rabbit Alliance. Aizaha said that he had sent the head of the alliance to heaven before he told him about all the things he had to do. Therefore, the responsibility for everything going on in the alliance fell entirely on Aiza's shoulders. Aizaha asked if anyone was giving Ja any trouble, and if there was any movement from the Black Pearl's front. Ja replied that that ponytailed soldier Sima was patrolling Ilyang County with his subordinates, so no one has a chance to give them trouble. Aizaha remembered that there is also Sima on Ilyang's guard. Also, Aizaha asked how Cha was doing. Ja laughed and said that Cha was sparring on wooden swords against the soldier Sima. He has been losing to him shamefully for 10 days. Ja also revealed that Cha has already managed to lose all 10 out of 10 sparring sessions. And this event has become a popular entertainment because whenever Sima and Cha fight, A lot of spectators gather around, and Cha calls himself a clan leader, and yet he lets himself get beaten up in front of everyone. Aizaha replied that he was ashamed of Cha. Aizaha handed Cha a pouch of gold plates. Aizaha told him to keep them with him at all times and to buy people a drink from time to time, since people work to live, but if they overdo it too much, they will definitely lie down from sickness. Ja replied that it was too much. Aizaha said that there were many people in the Builder clan and Ja could use them for whatever they needed. In parting, Ja thanked Aizaha and wished him a happy journey. Aizaha went about his business when suddenly someone called his name. He turned around and saw a crowd of strangers in front of him. The ringleader said the guy looked like Aizaha. The ringleader's partner had a portrait of Aizaha. Aizaha looked at them and asked if they were the jerks from the Black Pearl front. The lad understood that these people had come to bring discord to Ilian's lands since word had reached them that he was not here. Aizaha knew that dark factions often resorted to such methods. They get to their encirclement without giving them the right to escape. The ringleader of the group introduced himself and said that he was Doc from the Black Pearl front. Doc began to tell Aizaha that the head of the Black Pearl fort had put up a reward of 30 gold plates for his head. And this was done at the behest of the Alliance of the Tiger's Roar and the Three Swords merchants. Doc also revealed that they were on their way to Ilyang Prefecture to post the document about the hunt for his head. But now Aizaha himself could personally read it. Aizaha realized it was a trivial courtesy. Given all that the dark faction was offering, it was certainly better to accept nothing. Doc said they had been looking for him since the rumors of his disappearance from Ilyang Prefecture. But if Aizaha himself comes to the Black Pearl Fort, though the head will remove the bounty on his head after only paying the Tiger Roar Alliance and the Three Sword merchants decently. Aizaha replied that somehow there were too many of them to just hand over the wanted document. Doc explained that they just heard about his skills, and that was why they decided to get together. Aizaha sighed and replied that it was an acceptable excuse. At this point, the boy reflected that there were days when he felt strange. There are days when he can feel nothing, beating crowds of people to death, and days where he tries to avoid senseless killing. And today is one of those days. Aizaha himself doesn't know the reasons for all of this, but he certainly wouldn't be labeled a mad demon if his actions were consistent. So Aizaha replied to the faction that he didn't think he was in the mood to meet their master right now. He promised that he would visit him himself soon. Suddenly Doc shouted after Aizaha that it would be better for him if he walked with them now. Then Aizaha turned around and asked Doc if he was so anxious to go to the other world with his subordinates. Doc replied that he couldn't react otherwise, since Aizaha had killed several influential people, and now claimed he would pick a date to appear before them himself. Also Doc said it made no difference whether he killed them all right now or later came to port, or followed there with them right now. And if Aizaha continued to delay his visit like this, he would have to face the men of the Dark Growl Alliance and the Three Swords merchants face to face. Aizaha thought that Doc was not afraid of death at all, so he decided to agree and go to their port of Black Pearls after all. Along the way, Aizaha thought that how sad it was that in this life, as long as he wore the mask, he was the head of the Black Rabbit Alliance that was crushing the forces of the Dark Faction. But as soon as he takes it off, that he once again becomes a mad demon whose actions cannot be predicted. Aizaha traveled with the group on a boat along the Hornless Dragon River. Aizaha said goodbye to his hometown and said he was leaving to make some money. He'd be back as soon as he made a hell of a lot of money. Aizaha has asked the town to welcome him with open arms when he returns, and so the errand boy sets off on a boat. The freaks in the faction thought Aizaha was mentally ill since he was communicating with some city. Aizaha looked around and told everyone that they were ugly. And I wonder if they do all these ugly things because of their ugly faces. Aizaha still remembered that there was some handsome man he knew, while doing many vile and perverted things. The left hand, the messenger of light. Aizaha told everyone present that he believed the abominations had nothing to do with their faces. Aizaha asked why the hell they were so ugly, and he answered that it was because they'd gotten into a lot of nasty behavior, and it was affecting their faces. Doc asked what kind of nefarious deeds Aizaha was talking about. The boy replied that it was something like slave auctioning. Aizaha had heard that the port of Black Pearls was dabbling in this sort of thing. One of the freaks advised Aizaha to shut down his bread machine. Aizaha then rudely replied that he wasn't done yet and asked the freak what goes through his head when he sees slaves up for auction. The freak laughed loudly and replied that at this moment he was thinking that he needed to earn a little money to get himself a robe too. Everyone on the boat started laughing loudly except Document Doc ordered everyone to shut their mouths immediately before he interrupted everyone. At this point Doc was thinking that these imbeciles were still not getting the message about how to behave with someone who was going to fight the head of the port in front of them. Doc asked Aizaha to let him ask a question. He asked if Aizaha intended to let them live. Aizaha was pondering that his insanity level had begun to rise, and it was unknown if it was because he had left the Ilyang prefecture. Aizaha thought he wouldn't behave like that in this life, like a mad demon from the past. At this time Doc again asked his question in a louder voice. Isaha replied that if they fought among themselves, his mercy would be granted to the one who survived. At that very second Doc stood up and drew his sword. A moment later Doc had killed all the freaks. Doc approached Aizaha, and the guy said that as promised he would let him live. Aizaha asked how the Black Pearl Port was doing. Doc replied that it was business as usual, just crawling with idiots. After a while they arrived at the ancient city of Black Sand. It's the military headquarters of the Black Pearls. The boat docked at the pier, and they were met on the shore by armed men. Doc came out first and said that he had brought Aiza, according to his master's orders. The warriors cleared the way, and Doc traveled with Aizaha to the city. Aizaha noticed that the town was very poor. He didn't expect that there were commoners in the port of Black Pearls, though it made sense, considering that some people were stolen, turning them into slaves. Aizaha, along with Doc, arrived at the tallest and most beautiful building in the city. At the gate, a guard asked Doc what had brought him there. Doc replied that he had brought Aiza and that this should be conveyed to the head of the port. The fellow opened the gate at once. Aiza, who was led to the meeting, he noticed that there were mostly old men there, so it became even more incomprehensible to him why old men would engage in such an abomination when they are not even capable of enjoying wealth. Suddenly Doc shouted to the whole hall that, according to their orders, he had brought Aiza. All the old men at once threw their attention to them. Aizaha wanted to sit down and ask the old man to move, but he did not even hear him. So Aizaha had to hit him and get a chair for himself. One of the people present began to shout how Aizaha dared to raise his hand against the leader. However, the leader shut his mouth. The head turned to Aizaha and said that he knew he had a long way to go, so he would get right to the point. The head said that he was aware that Aizaha had killed 3 people of the Black Pearl Port, and that it was due to his house catching fire. Aizaha replied that that might be true. The head then said that since their men were the first to take action, Aizaha could leave as soon as they cut off 3 of his fingers. Aizaha replied that it was not even up for discussion as they could not carelessly chop up his body given to him by his parents. Then the head offered to part with 1 finger and 100 plates of gold. The head said that Aizaha would pay for the damage done to what was under the supervision of the port. At this the head finished his speech, and all present began to thank him for his hard work and charity. Aizaha meanwhile thought what a lot of crazy people there are in this world. They think they can decide everything unilaterally. Aizaha replied to the chapter that his offer was declined because the guy didn't have much money. And even if he had it, he wouldn't give it away. The head explained that the port of Black Pearls always takes its money, and in this case, his family would have to pay for Aiza's misdeeds. Aizaha looked at the head and replied that he has no family, and it is his dream to have a family someday, and he also dreams of chicken noodles. The head rudely replied that if Aiza had no family, the people of Ilion would pay for his misdeeds. Aizaha glared menacingly at the head and replied that this was starting to annoy him, so he would also make conditions. Aizaha turned to all the old men and said that either they would fall to their knees right now and lick his feet or everyone in this room would die. Doc at this time thought that Aizaha had gone completely insane, since he had provoked not only the head of the port, but all the elders as well. One of the elders couldn't stand it and drew his sword to teach the boy a lesson, but he couldn't do anything without the head's approval. The head at this time told Aizaha that he was a fool for giving him a chance, but Aizaha was eager for bloodshed against all odds. Aizaha replied that only the leader is a fool. He had given him a chance to survive, and the head was still eager to spill blood. The head couldn't stand it and ordered Aiza to be killed. The old men immediately pounced on the boy to destroy him. Aizaha had dealt with half of the old men. The rest were no longer so bold to lunge at him, so Aizaha was luring them himself. After a couple of minutes, Aizaha disposed of all the old men. After that, he told the head to stop acting so pompous. After all he was doing was just watching his subordinates die, waiting for Aizaha to run out of steam. The head stood up and the fight began. Strangely enough, the head was the most worthy opponent of all those old men who were already lying on the floor. The head managed to disarm Aizaha. Doc had been watching the battle the whole time, and he noticed that the sword had just drawn back to Aizaha. Aizaha noticed that the head wasn't bad. His strength comparable to Song if he had trained in the art of the sword for another 40 years. Aizaha couldn't help but notice that the head was sick with something. Due to his weakness, his movements were stiff and his breathing was not steady. Aizaha overpowered the head and pinned him against the wall. The head begged for mercy and said that if he allowed his subordinates to cure him, then the head would appoint Aizaha as the next head of the port. However, if Aizaha kills him now, he won't be able to completely subdue the Black Pearl port. And since all these guys are nothing more than imbeciles, the head should lead them. Aizaha replied that the head's speech was filled with horror and from the looks of it, he did not wish to die. Aizaha told the chapter that he had lived a good life on the money made from kidnapping people, selling slaves and making everyone's life around him a living hell. And the head must have killed countless people who were also begging for mercy like he is now. So Aizaha held out his hand to do the technique and said that trash like him was better off dead. Doc shouted to Aizaha that he was to be the next head of the port. Then Aizaha told him to come over, and Aizaha began to beat him into not mentioning the port to him again or telling him how he should proceed. However, in a moment Aizaha realized that these imbeciles really needed to be watched. So he ordered Doc back to the hall and cured all the old people who were lucky enough to survive. Survivors have to live after all. Aizaha didn't understand how he should proceed. After all, if all of Jianghu's people were gathered there, like in the Black Rabbit Alliance, he would easily devour their organization. But since they are too much of a crowd pleaser, you won't be able to tell which one is Jianghu and which one isn't. Aizaha now realized that he would have to pay for beating someone to death. Aizaha called the meeting together and immediately warned that he would be brief. He said the best solution was to appoint a head of the port, and with that, he would take control of all the Black Pearls. Aizaha said that he was appointing Doc as the next head. He warned Doc that his first task as an assignment would be to mobilize everyone who could help in the destruction of the fortress walls. Doc was surprised and asked why the fortress walls had to be destroyed. Then Aizaha asked if he had to chew on everything. Suddenly Doc and all present shouted that they needed it. It was then that Aizaha realized that he would have to endure some stupidity. Therefore, Aizaha told them that they might believe that the walls were protecting them, but they were completely useless against Jianghu martial artists. And the fact that the head of the port strongest among them couldn't stand up for his life proves it. And also Aizaha revealed that because of their isolation, they can't even negotiate with anyone outside the walls. Aizaha looked at everyone carefully and hoped they at least understood what he was telling them. The boy pulled himself together and continued. He ordered that they start by tearing down the fortress. They'll start going out more often, since the world is more spacious than a port of black pearls. Those present agreed. Then Aizaha warned that on his next visit, if he saw a slave trade here, either gambling, racketeering, or anything that pisses him off, then Aizaha will kill Doc. And then he will take turns killing all the captains whose faces he has memorized. And he will also ask that his honors be given to the head of the Black Pearl port on the other world. One of the captains asked that Aizaha spell out more details about what they needed to do. Then Aizaha lost his temper even more and said that if he couldn't even do that, then let him go clean up the bodies and dismantle the fortress with the rest of the mercenaries. And don't let him sit there on his ass calling himself captain and asking what he needs to do. Aizaha then ordered everyone to listen, that from now on they would ask permission for all actions from the jerk Doc. Also, Aizaha ordered them to get rid of that name with the black pearls and report back to him as soon as they choose a new name. And don't you dare use the word black. Suddenly one of the captains raised his hand and suggested using the word white. Aizaha answered him that he was a dumbass, because even renaming it was causing him so much trouble. Suddenly another captain raised his hand, and then Aizaha started yelling that no more questions until the meeting was over. Also, Aizaha told them to reduce their volume of rules to 3. The captains did not understand how they could reduce over 100 rules to 3. Aizaha replied that if they needed to add something else so badly, They could discuss the pros and possible tricks amongst themselves before adding anything. Aizaha ordered that all captured men be released and taxed. Burn all documents related to the bounty hunt. And also the captain is forbidden to take money from the fund and use it to help people in dire straits. And finally build normal houses, employ people from the outside and erect a couple of backyards. Aizaha asked if everyone had understood. The captains began to say that they had already heard it from Captain Doke. Then with a special hopefulness, Aizaha looked at Doc and asked him to try harder. He also ordered him to get a change of clothes, since Aizaha had gotten a little dirty. After that, Aizaha returned to the Black Rabbit Alliance. He didn't understand why there was such silence. He assumed that those lazy people were slacking off on their training again. Beck came running in. Aizaha asked him why there was such silence. Beck replied that it was not that simple, and the golden boar was here. Aizaha went to research information about the golden boar. No one knows if this man became a golden boar because of his gluttony, or if his gluttony was related to becoming a golden boar. His martial arts level is between the 7th and 8th rank, and he is known to have become the strongest disciple of the great Rakshasa because of his physical strength and the condition of his body. He has long been the young head of a wealthy group of traders, bringing in huge sums of money to the great Rakshasa.